In the interest of starting on time, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. And like all meetings, we start with a pledge and the prayer. Or prayer and the pledge in this case. So with that, please rise, uncover, and join us in a prayer and pledge allegiance. Heavenly Father, as we gather today for this Planning Commission meeting, we humbly ask for your guidance and wisdom in our deliberations. Grant us discernment to see the needs of our community clearly and the foresight to make the decisions that promote responsible development while honoring the character of our county. May our discussions be respectful, thoughtful, and focused on the greater good. Help us to listen attentively to all perspectives, weigh options with fairness, and ultimately choose what is best for the future of our community. We thank you for your presence with us and ask you that you bless our work today. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. With that, can we get a roll call?
Roll call. Dan Guthrie. Are you on a green light?
Sorry, here.
Ken Madsen.
Here.
Kyle DiNardo.
Here.
Nicole Hunt.
Here.
John Gresham.
Here.
Dee Dee Schott-Grace.
Present.
Robert Politek. Robert Politek. Absent. Dan McCallan. Dan McCallan. Absent. Kevin Kirkwood.
Present.
Thank you. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Commissioners. Since your last meeting, the Board of County Commissioners heard and approved the Metro District Service Plan for the Coyote Ridge Metro District. That's the only item I have to report to you tonight.
Great. Do you want to do an ad hoc report on where we're at with the comprehensive plan?
Would you like to give that update, sir?
Sure. We have gone through and we have edited all of the documentation from our friends at Kimley Horn, and I believe that we have reached a conclusion to the first round of this. They'll go back through, clean it up, do a couple other things, and then we'll very shortly be getting this out for community review and approval. There's some dates associated with that, and my friends at on the staff can help us out with that.
Yes, sir. You all do have a work session scheduled for September 29th on the comprehensive plan, and we'll determine at that meeting if we need to schedule another one or schedule it for public hearing or what needs to happen. That's the only one we have scheduled as of this moment.
Fantastic. Thank you. With that, I'd like to open the floor for citizens' comments. And these are comments unrelated to the matters at hand tonight. So if you have anything you'd like to get off your chest that is not related to what we're hearing tonight with our friends over here, then please come to the front and speak up. I don't see anybody jumping up to the podium, so we'll go ahead and move forward, close the citizen comments. We do have meeting minutes from August 18th, 2026.
Pardon me, Chairman. Would you be able to move your mic so that you're speaking directly into it, please? Thank you.
I have that talent. With that, can we take a look at, and have everybody taken a look at the meeting minutes from August 18th, 2026? Any comments? Any changes?
No, sir.
Well, then let's, I'll hear a motion for approving?
I move that we approve the minutes from August 18th, 2026.
Second?
I'll second.
Fantastic. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry, who was the second? Kyle, thank you.
Kyle was the second. Thank you.
One abstention.
And we do have one abstention. No, fair enough. With that, we will go ahead and start the public hearing process. What this board does is conduct a quasi-judicial hearing, which means this body finds facts as it relates to the matters at hand and makes a recommendation for the Board of County Commissioners based on everything that we hear, assuming that we have competent and substantial evidence presented to us. With that, we will go ahead and open the public hearing and get staff presentation.
Great. Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is Mary Geisinger. I'm a planner at Logan Simpson, contracted on behalf of Elbert County to review these applications for the Shepherd Solar Project.
Can you move the mic a little closer? Thank you.
Absolutely. Is that better? Great. The following two agenda items will be presented together in regards to case numbers 1041 2026-0001 and SUR 2026-0002. Each agenda item will be for the purpose of permitting a use by special review permit and 1041 permit for the construction and operation of a solar energy facility with accessory battery energy storage system, or BESS. The subject properties include parcel numbers 19263000138, owned by J&D Farm Properties, LLC, parcel number 1831000038, owned by Jack and Linda Marinville, and parcel number 1936000044, owned by Chad and Cindy Marinville. The applicant is Baywa Renewable Energy. The subject properties range in size from approximately 320 acres to 640 acres, totaling 3,300 acres, with the proposed development being across approximately 1,990 acres of the subject properties. The subject properties are located in the southeast of Elbert County and southeast of Simla and Matheson. The subject properties are OL zoned agriculture A, with surrounding zoning being OL zoned agriculture as well. The closest property with zoning other than agriculture is a single parcel zoned agriculture 2, or A-2, over a mile from the project site at the closest point. Here's an aerial of the subject proposed development area in yellow within the overall subject properties in the red outline. The proposed project is located off of County Road 149 to the west and County Road 46 to the south. The subject property has been utilized primarily for grazing, with adjacent properties being utilized for agricultural production. 5 residencies are within 1 mile of the subject project site. Here is a view of the subject property looking east from 149. This is the approximate location of the battery energy storage system, or BESS, and substation. Here's another view of the subject property looking west from County Road 50. Here's a final view of the subject property from County Road 149, looking west from the subject site towards the adjacent Rush Creek Wind Project. The proposed project will include solar, battery energy storage systems, an operations and maintenance building, also known as an O&M, and project substation. The project is situated around an existing tri-state transmission line. Setbacks around the property lines and right-of-ways have been integrated into the project design at an average of 170 feet. The proposed project will include 5 parking spaces, consisting of 4 standard parking spaces and 1 Americans with Disabilities Act compliant parking space for the operation of an on-site O&M building. A larger temporary parking area will be provided for construction. Fencing will be limited to around the panels and be constructed as wildlife exclusion fencing per CPW recommendations. Security fencing will be utilized around the BES and substation facilities. The project proposes 6 potential access points from County Road 149, County Road 153, County Road 50, and County Road 46. Lighting will be limited to security. Water will be trucked in for construction and operation. Portable bathrooms will be utilized during construction, and a septic system will be constructed for the O&M building. Landscaping will be around the exterior of the area with BES substation and the O&M building. The applicant has also submitted their best practices through a mitigation table in Appendix J of the 1041 application, included in your agenda packet, and included narrative on their citing and considerations within their application narrative. There are 9 documented non-jurisdictional wetlands within the project area, and there are 6 ephemeral stream swales throughout the site. The subject property contains a FEMA Zone A floodplain along a stream going west to east. Upon the decommissioning of the solar facility, the SUR and 1041 entitlements shall also be removed from the property unless otherwise negotiated with the county. Grading will be limited to the areas outlined within the preliminary grading and erosion control plan included in Appendix G of the 1041 application. Vegetation removed during construction will be revegetated with best practices outlined in Appendix N, Vegetation Management Plan and Landscaping Plan. The project timeline and review period included the following steps. A pre-application meeting was held on April 23, 2025. The applicant's first community meeting was held December 8, 2025, and their second community meeting was held April 2, 2026. The applicant's first submittal was received on March 12, 2026, and deemed incomplete with suggested updates. The applicant's second and formal submittal was received on April 28, 2026, and deemed complete. The first referral period was from May 28th to June 26th, and the second referral period was from July 22nd to August 6th. Mailed notice were sent to surrounding property owners within 2,640 feet radius of the project site on August 19th, 2026. Public notice signs were posted at the subject property on August 10th, 2026. And newspaper notifications were published in Elbert County News on July 30th, 2026. All notice requirements were met. Here is an image of one of the notice signs postings on the subject property. The SUR and 1041 permits were sent on its first referral period from May 28th to June 26th. The applicant responded to all comments. The main revisions included updates to both project narratives, clarity and discussion on required traffic studies and agreements, and addressing other general planning-related comments. The second referral was from July 22nd to August 6th, and was limited to those who had not responded to the original referral period and those with comments. The applicant finalized plans addressing all remaining comments thereafter. Additional review was completed by Logan Simpson subject matter experts in its specialized areas, such as visual resources, biological resources, and cultural resources. The applicant addressed all referral and department comments and concerns. The referral response letters and resubmittals are included as attachments in the agenda packet, and a list of referral agencies is included in this slide. There are no outstanding objections from any referral agencies. However, additional conditions have been requested from Public Works. The applicant hosted a community meeting at the Hope Community Center in Simla on December 8th, 2025. The event was noticed per Elbert County requirements. Elbert County community members shared questions about long-term land stewardship, decommissioning obligations, visual and environmental effects, fire safety, electricity distribution, and local economic benefits. The applicant provided a project overview presentation explaining the project's size and configuration and use of existing grid infrastructure, preliminary timeline, and future project decommissioning. A second community meeting was held by the applicant on April 2nd, 2026 in the Elbert County Agricultural Building. Approximately 18 people signed up in that meeting. Concerns and questions from the public included topics such as safety, natural disasters, drainage, water, site selection, property values, and construction. 6 public comments have been received in regards to the proposed project. 1 comment was received prior to the community meeting about non-involvement in the project, with their land not being within the proposed project area. 1 public comment in opposition of the application, and 4 public comments in support of the proposed project were received during the public comment period and are included within your packet. All comments and documentation of the community meetings and public comments are included within your agenda packet. The following criteria found in Elbert County Zoning Regulations, Article 3.E, was considered with reviewing the SUR application of the proposed project. A, the use is in harmony and compatible with the surrounding area and neighborhood. A solar facility is an allowable land use on agricultural A-zoned properties with a special use by review permit. The proposed project integrates setbacks from property lines, public rights-of-way, floodplains, wetlands, and water bodies. The use does not interfere with agricultural activities on the adjacent properties, with minimal water use anticipated over the lifetime of the project. The project is strategically located to integrate connection with the existing tri-state transmission line. B, the use will not have an undue burden on available infrastructure. There will be no new water wells and no use of existing water wells on site. Any on-site septic system will be permitted through the Elbert County Public Health and will be minimal in size. No significant impacts on the existing road system were identified. However, additional traffic studies will be required prior to finalization of a road use agreement. The facility would supplement the existing electrical infrastructure and power supply of Elbert County. C, the use will not unduly increase traffic congestion or burden the existing road systems. The proposed use will likely cause an increase in traffic on the existing nearby roadways, particularly during the construction phase. 2 routes, County Road 149 and County Road 169, are currently identified as the primary preferred access routes, with County Road 133 and County Road 46 as other potential options. A traffic plan was prepared as part of the application packet, included as Appendix K. A final traffic plan and study will be required prior to finalization of the road use agreement. Elbert County Public Works has reviewed the application and discussed with the applicant future requirements. As part of a road use agreement, a full traffic study and road condition assessment will be needed. The applicant has responded to all comments. A condition of approval for a road use agreement is recommended. D, the use will not cause significant air, odor, water, noise, or light pollution. Review of the SUR proposal by various experts, including Elbert County Public Health, Elbert County Public Works, Elbert County Office of Emergency Management, and others, has not resulted in any anticipated significant air, odor, water, noise, or light pollution. Lighting on the site is limited to security lighting and lighting around the substation. There is no anticipated noise or odor associated with the facility. There is also no anticipated air or water pollution with the proposed solar use. The proposed project will complete a stormwater management plan, spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan, and air pollutant emissions notice prior to construction. Preliminary plans and analysis were submitted as part of the application packet. Final plans will be required prior to construction. E, all sanitation requirements will be met. The SUR application was reviewed by Elbert County Public Health. All necessary permits and approvals from Elbert County Public Health will be required at time of development. Elbert County Public Health has no objection to the approval of the SUR application. F, the use will be adequately landscaped, buffered, and screened. The SUR exhibit illustrates a significant setback from external property lines and public rights-of-way in order to help buffer the project from public view. The project area is set back an average of 170 feet from most roadways around the project site, including County Road 149, County Road 46, County Road 50, and County Road 54. The BES and substation are also located over 1,500 feet from County Road 149 and over half a mile from an adjacent property structure. In addition, vegetation screening will be utilized around the substation, O&M building, and BES portion of the project site to screen the facility from adjacent properties. Visual renderings are provided from a variety of vantage points near the subject site. All vegetation screening will be within the property line of the project with a minimum 30-foot buffer. A vegetation management plan and landscaping plan are included within the application submittal within your packets. G, the use will not otherwise be detrimental to the health, safety, or welfare of the present or future inhabitants of Elbert County. The SUR application was reviewed by the Elbert County Office of Emergency Management, Elbert County Public Health, Elbert County Public Works, Elbert County Sheriff's Office, and Big Sandy Fire Protection District, with no objections or noted health or safety concerns. According to the application materials, the proposed project is designed with multiple layers of safety to protect workers, the public, and surrounding properties. The project will comply with all applicable federal, state, and local regulations and will incorporate industry best practices to ensure safe construction, operation, and maintenance. And H, supplemental standards are met for specific uses as applicable. There are no applicable supplemental standards for the proposed project. Should the Planning Commission decide to recommend approval for Shepherd Solar SUR 2026-0002, the following conditions of approval may be appropriate. 1, the applicant shall remove signs within 2 weeks of the conclusion of all notified meetings, public hearings, or decisions. Signs not removed within 2 weeks may be removed by Elbert County, subject to reasonable charges for removal. 2, the special use by review shall not become effective until all fees are paid and the special use by review exhibit is recorded. 3, recordation of all appropriate documentation to occur within 180 days of Board of County Commissioners approval. Four, the special use by review approval is contingent upon approval of the concurrent Major 1041 application. 5, a road use agreement and associated requirements must be finalized with Elbert County Public Works and executed before beginning any construction on site. And 6, all required and pertinent final plans shall be submitted to Public Works and Public Health prior to the completion of construction permits. In regard to the 1041 application, 1041-2026-0001, the following criteria found in Elbert County zoning regulations, Article 17.m, was considered with reviewing the 1041 application of the proposed project. A, documentation that prior to site disturbance associated with the proposed project, the applicant can and will obtain all necessary property rights, rights-of-way, and easements, permits, and approvals, federal and state agencies included. All documentation of necessary property rights, right-of-ways and easements, permits, and approvals have been provided by the applicant. Several permits and approvals will not be obtained until the submittal of construction permits. For these approvals, the applicant has outlined a clear timeframe and schedule for when they will be anticipated. B, the proposed project protects water quality and supply according to the relevant provisions of an existing water quality plans. The proposed project will be set back from all water features within the project site. Water utilized for the proposed use construction will be hauled from off-site sources. The application outlines stormwater erosion controls, and the stormwater management plan and dust suppression measures are designed to protect surface and groundwater quality in accordance with county standards. Colorado Division of Water Resources provided informal comments on the applications and had no comments regarding this referral, so long as the existing wells on the property are used in accordance with their permitted terms and conditions. A stormwater management plan, general permit for stormwater discharge associated with construction activity, and a spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan will be required prior to construction. C, the proposed project is not subject to significant risk from natural hazards. The proposed project is sited within a low geological and meteorological hazard area. The applicant has coordinated with Big Sandy Fire Protection District, and they have no concerns with this project. D, the proposed project is in general conformity with applicable master plans. The proposed project aligns with the 2018 county goals for land use, community resources, and economic developments. The proposed project has also taken into consideration current updates to the comprehensive plan for Elbert County and is jointly located with an existing transmission line. E, the proposed project will not have significant adverse effects on the capability of local government to provide services or exceed the capacity of service delivery systems. The proposed project has committed to a road use agreement, traffic management plan, a dedicated water storage tank, and training to support emergency response. Big Sandy Fire Protection District and Elbert County Office of Emergency Management will be included in these trainings. The planning, design, operation, and decommissioning of the proposed project will reflect principles of sustainability, resource conservation, energy efficiency, and recycling or reuse. The applicant has committed to multiple best management practices noted within Appendix J. The applicant has committed to their decommissioning process to maximize the recycling, reuse, and salvage of applicable facility components, included within Appendix M in your agenda packets. No concerns from referral agencies were raised in regard to principles of sustainability, resource conservation, energy efficiency, and recycling or reuse. Preliminary plans were submitted as part of the application packet, with final plans to be required prior to construction. G, the proposed project will not significantly degrade the environment. The applicant addressed air, visual, surface water, groundwater, wetlands, wildlife, and vegetation within the application narrative, emphasizing siting and design choices to avoid wetlands and high-priority habitats. CPW provided comment and had no concerns regarding the project. H, the proposed project will not negatively impact high-priority habitat defined by Colorado Parks and Wildlife and will include applicant consultation with and input from Colorado Parks and Wildlife about the proposed project's potential impact on wildlife resources in the county. There is no designated critical habitat or high-priority habitat on site. The applicant has coordinated with CPW for implementation of avoidance, minimization, and mitigation measures within the proposed project design. CPW provided comment and had no concerns regarding the project and suggested a few additional measures to be included. The applicant has responded to the comments and has integrated additional measures, including several wildlife corridors within their project designs. I, the proposed project will not cause a nuisance as defined within the Elbert County Land Use and Development Code. The 1041 proposal was reviewed by various experts, including Elbert County Public Health, Elbert County Public Works, Elbert County Office of Emergency Management, and others, and has not resulted in any anticipated significant air, odor, water, noise, or light pollution beyond an acceptable level per county regulations. Lighting on site is limited to the security lighting and lighting around the substation. There is no anticipated noise or odor associated with the facility. There is also no anticipated air or water pollution with the proposed solar use. J, the proposed project will not degrade areas of paleontological, historic, or archaeological importance. There are no known cultural or historical sites within the proposed project site. The applicant has included an unanticipated discovery plan and a desktop analysis of cultural resources. Elbert County Historical Society commented on the application and had no concerns. K, if the proposed project is designed to serve areas within the county, the proposed project is necessary to meet community development and population demands in those areas. The proposed project will support regional electrical demand and support grid reliability. The project will not require additional services from the county. And L, the proposed project will not result in unreasonable risk of release of hazardous materials. The proposed use will include BESS and limited hazardous materials on site. All fuels and oils will be stored meeting state safety standards. Proposed BESS specifications include extensive safety features and will be compliant with local, state, and federal safety standards. Additional safety features were included in the proposed project designs following comments from Big Sandy Fire District. Finalization of plans will be needed prior to construction. For major review of 1041 applications, the following additional criteria shall be considered. A, if the proposed project is designed to serve areas within the county, the proposed project is necessary to meet community development and population demands in those areas. The proposed project will support regional electrical demand and support grid reliability. The project will not require additional services from the county. B, the proposed project is technically and financially capable. The applicant has demonstrated experience with development of renewable energy projects. Baywell Renewable Energy has secured financing from various parties, included within their application narrative within your packets. The application narrative also contains a background on Baywell Renewable Energy's technical and financial capabilities. Appendix F also contains an economic impact analysis with financial details related to the project. C, the applicant has the necessary expertise and financial capability to develop and operate the proposed project consistent with all requirements and conditions. The applicant has demonstrated extensive experience with development of renewable energy projects and has secured financing. D, the proposed project will not significantly degrade any substantial sector of the local economy. The applicant has provided documentation of local economic benefits included in Appendix F of your packets. The project would provide benefits for increasing tax revenue and provided examples of where those taxes would be allotted. The applicant has also signed an affidavit on their fiscal responsibility. E, the proposed project will not unduly degrade the quality or quantity of recreational opportunities and experiences. There are no recreation features within or adjacent to the proposed project. The nearest recreational opportunities are located over 10 miles away from the project site. And F, the benefits occurring to the county and its residents from the proposed activity outweigh the losses of any resources within the county or the losses of opportunities to develop such resources. A solar facility is an allowable land use on agricultural A-zoned properties with a special use by review and 1041 permit. The proposed project integrates setbacks from property lines, public rights-of-way, floodplains, wetlands, and water bodies. The use does not interfere with agricultural activities on adjacent properties. The project supports the reliability of the regional electrical grid. G, the proposed project is the most suitable solution available based on consideration of need, location, existing technology, cost, impact, and the regulations. The applicant provided details on their siting process and considerations for alternative designs. The proposed project has included numerous avoidance, minimization, and mitigation efforts into their project design, included in Appendix J. In addition to the general criteria set forth in Elbert County zoning regulations, Article 17.m, the following criteria applicable to major facilities of a public utility was also considered. A, major facilities of a public utility shall be implemented so as to preserve desirable community patterns of traffic and transportation, aesthetics and landscape, residential and commercial development, commerce and industry. A solar facility is an allowable land use on agricultural A-zone properties with a special use by review and 1041 permit. The proposed use will likely cause an increase in traffic on the existing nearby roadways, particularly during the construction phase. Two routes, County Road 149 and County Road 169, are currently identified as the primary preferred access routes, with County Road 133 and County Road 46 as other potential options. A traffic plan was prepared as part of the application packet, included as Appendix I. A final traffic plan and study will be required prior to finalization of the road use agreement. Elbert County Public Works has reviewed the application and discussed with the applicant future requirements. As part of a road use agreement, a full traffic study and road condition assessment will be needed. The applicant has responded to all comments. A condition of approval for a road use agreement is recommended. There are no outstanding objections from the county and referral agencies. And B, major facilities of a public utility shall be located so as to avoid direct conflict with adopted local, state, and regional master plans unless demonstrated to be infeasible in an alternative evaluation as determined by the county. The proposed project does not conflict with local, regional, or state master plans. No referral agencies presented objections to the proposed projects. Should the Planning Commission decide to recommend approval for Shepherd Solar 1041-2026-0001, the following conditions of approval may be appropriate. 1, the applicant shall remove signs within 2 weeks of the conclusion of all notified meetings, public hearings, or decisions. Signs not removed within 2 weeks may be removed by Elbert County, subject to reasonable charges for removal. 2, the Major 1041 permit shall not become effective until all fees are paid. 3, recordation of all appropriate documentation is to occur within 180 days of Board of County Commissioners approval. 4, in accordance with Elbert County Code 17.N, a financial security in the form of a bond, irrevocable letter of credit, or similar posting shall be negotiated and paid to the county. 5, the Major 1041 permit approval is contingent upon approval of the concurrent special use by review application. 6, a road use agreement and associated requirements must be finalized with Elbert County Public Works and executed before beginning any construction on site. And 7, all required and pertinent final plans shall be submitted to Public Works and Public Health prior to the completion of construction permits. Thank you, Commissioners. Staff is available to answer any questions. The applicant is here as well to share additional details about the project and to answer any questions.
And thank you. Appreciate that. Would the applicant like to present?
Yes, thank you.
And thank you all for coming up front, because it's kind of hard to see over at the table over there.
All right, well, thank you, Elbert County Planning Commission and Elbert County staff. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, is this better? Okay. Thank you all for the time. We're here to talk about the Shepherd Solar Major 1041 and SUR applications. Struggling to get the slideshow to advance. Down. There we go. Thank you. My name is Adam Williams. I'm a Vice President of Development at Baywa RE. I'm here with my colleagues, Natalie Aiello, our Permitting Manager, Annika Egan, who is our Community Engagement Manager, Cody Ledwig, Director of Construction, Carolyn White, our local counsel, and Gina Burke from Gene Water Consultants. We're going to talk through the Shepherd Solar project benefits for Elbert County. We'll do a review of safety and environmental, and also a review of Elbert County requirements and how the Shepherd project meets those. So starting with project benefits for Elbert County, just to ground everybody, as you I think already saw in the staff report, the Shepherd Solar and Storage Project is located in southeastern Elbert County. We're 8 to 9 miles from the nearest town, about 10 miles from the nearest recreational facility, and we're located in proximity to an existing transmission line. So no new long-distance transmission lines need to be built to support this project. In terms of economic impacts, Shepherd Solar Project is forecast to generate $29 million in lifetime property tax revenue. Of that, $11.4 million to the Elbert County schools. We forecast $1.6 million of annual operations spending in the county, 219 jobs through construction. So this project has an economic impact equivalent to that of about 220 new homes. But critically, the project achieves this without increasing traffic, population, or taxpayer-funded services. In other project benefits, obviously this project produces electricity that will feed the regional electrical grid. For example, Tri-State and Mountain View Co-op. It provides reliability to the grid, reducing the chances of outages by virtue of having a battery. Provides diversified energy independence through domestic energy production. And additionally, BayWa has worked to provide some benefits to the community, including so far sponsorship of the 150-year celebration, sponsorship of the Elbert County Annual Fair for the last 2 years. We've also volunteered at the annual fair. The picture in the lower right is from Elbert County Fair. We've done battery training and preparedness work with the Big Sandy Fire District. Picture in the upper right is from our training that we did last year with Big Sandy. And the project has made a $100,000 commitment to Big Sandy Fire District as well. Moving over to safety and environmental. The bulk of the project footprint is going to be the solar field. As many of you may know, solar field is composed of solar panels that are fully enclosed. These are solar cells made of crystalline polysilicon. Those are sandwiched with an encapsulant, polymer encapsulant, and those are in turn sandwiched by tempered glass. And these panels are designed to be robust under all kinds of weather conditions. They can last up to 40 years. That's the anticipated lifetime of the plant. Panels go into stow configuration in the event of a storm. This reduces the likelihood of damage in any kind of a storm, whether that be rain or snow or hail. And we, as you heard from Mary, we designed these plants with multiple layers of safety. From the early stage design through operations, our facilities are designed for best-in-class safety and environmental performance. We specify equipment that's rigorously tested and exceeds all relevant safety requirements. I'll make a special note of battery technology. I think everybody knows that there have been battery fires. Car batteries have caught on fire. Utility scale batteries have caught on fire. I think one of the most important things that we can do is specify equipment that's highly unlikely to have any kind of a failure at all, let alone a fire. One of the things that we've seen is that the battery industry has responded vigorously to some of the safety issues that have come up. And over the last years, the incidence of all battery failures, including fires, has gone down by 99% from 2018 to 2025. It's on a per megawatt installed basis. So batteries have gotten substantially safer over the years, and they continue to do so. We want no fires ever. And so we spec equipment that meets all of the relevant safety requirements. We have 24/7 automated shutdown capabilities and monitoring. As was mentioned in the staff report, we have an on-site O&M building. We also have a remote operated control center. And in that remote operator control center, we have 24/7 ability to monitor all of the site's performance right down to one, a single solar panel or a single battery cell. So if we see any potential safety issues, we can shut down the facility as necessary. We can contain an issue. And of course, we work with Big Sandy, and we'll continue to work with Big Sandy to ensure that we have emergency response to the site as necessary. We do vegetation management, and the point here is that all of these layers work together to ensure that we can prevent incidents first and foremost, detect potential incidents before they occur, contain any incidents that happen, and then support a safe, coordinated response to them. And with that, I will turn it over to Natalie.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Adam, and thank you, Planning Commission and members of the public. I really appreciate you all being here this evening, especially those of you who came from far away. I know it's not an easy drive to make, so really appreciate your time attending tonight's session. So I'm the permitting manager for Baywa RE. I've been supporting the Shepherd project for over a year. Wanted to just provide you with an overview. I know Mary did, but also from my perspective, on some of the agencies and different stakeholder groups that we've been working with. So most importantly, Elbert County residents, we really have tried and will continue to try to hear their concerns, address their concerns with our project. The other groups on this board also have provided meaningful feedback into our project. That's both through the formal county referral review process and also proactively outside of that application process. And really the goal of these conversations is always just to learn as much as we can from these different groups that are on the board and incorporate their feedback into our project as much as possible. I'd also like to note that we very much view these conversations as continuing to be an open door, and so we'll plan to continue engaging with these groups as needed as the project gets closer to construction. I wanted to provide an overview as well of the environmental studies that we've completed for the project to date. So we completed a wetland delineation, which mapped several wetlands and streams on site. We will be avoiding those entirely with no planned impacts to those resources and a 100-foot buffer off of those resources. We've also conducted wildlife surveys. That's both habitat and just observance of different wildlife species from the various times that we've been on site. There are no federal or state threatened or endangered species known to occur within the project site or that have been observed on the project site. We've obviously worked very closely with Colorado Parks and Wildlife even before submitting our application to make sure that their recommendations were incorporated into our project. Notably, and we'll discuss this on a later slide, but the fence design and wildlife corridors are an important consideration and something that we have incorporated to make our project as wildlife friendly as possible. There's no mapped high priority habitat and no mapped federal critical habitat on site. Adam touched on this a little bit with the safety presentation, but of course natural hazards are an important consideration out here on the eastern plains of Colorado. We know hailstorms are prevalent, tornadoes possible, and so I just wanted to speak to that a little bit tonight. So these facilities are designed to withstand impacts from those systems. They undergo manufacturer testing, particularly for hail, and there also have been several facilities across the U.S. that have been impacted by both tornadoes and high Category 4 and 5, which are the two highest categories of hurricane strength, and those facilities had very minimal damage to their projects. The maximum number of panels that was taken out by any one singular event was 2%. which is relatively low. The damage was localized to the project site. Additionally, they did do soil testing and found that there were no concerns and no hazardous materials in the soils after those events. On water use, so we are not proposing to use any of the existing on-site wells for our project. We also are not proposing to install any new wells. We will source the water off-site entirely, and we'll minimize it to the extent that we can. Solar is among one of the lowest water use energy sources in the US. We will need water for construction to achieve two main objectives, really. One, dust control, try and keep the dust down, avoid impacting our neighbors with dust and driving conditions in the area, and also importantly for revegetation. We want to establish vegetation on site as quickly as possible, both from a dust control perspective and also to prevent noxious weed introduction. On noxious weeds, we will have a weed management plan in place as part of our vegetation management plan. So prior to construction and during operations, we will have worker environmental awareness trainings, and that will include an identification guide to the various noxious weeds that are known to be found in this area, and we'll work with local experts on that list. And if weeds are observed on site, they will be controlled either mechanically or chemically to prevent noxious weeds spreading in the area. And then lastly, on stormwater, the site will be designed in full compliance with the Mile High Flood Drainage District requirements. We will also have a stormwater management plan in place prior to construction. And during construction, we'll have regular inspections of our stormwater best management practices to ensure that they are effectively managing stormwater on site and preventing erosion, which is always the goal. You saw this a little bit on Mary's presentation, but I wanted to include it again as well. So just to orient you, so the existing tri-state transmission line kind of runs diagonally across the project site. That was a large part of the reason why we cited this project in this location, so that we could consolidate our project footprint and prevent any off-site infrastructure needs. The areas that are gridded are the solar panels. The area in green, it's tough to see on the screen, but green and yellow are the BESS area and O&M building on the project site in the southwestern portion. And then in purple, you can see the map FEMA floodplain. We will again be avoiding that entirely, and same story for the teal resources, which are the mapped wetlands and streams on site. I also wanted to present some of the visual simulations that we've completed. We do have more of these, and I'm happy to provide those during the Q&A session. But just wanted to provide a representative sample from around the project area. So the project, due to existing topography, is largely screened from many of these points of view. One of the locations at 3, there will be a view of the solar panels. However, with the setbacks that we are incorporating and also the low profile nature of the solar panels themselves, we don't anticipate that there will be significant visual impact as the panels tend to blend with the horizon. All right, and then I'll pass it over to Carolyn to provide an overview of the approval criteria.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, county staff, members of the public. My name is Carolyn White. I'm local land use counsel for the applicant for this project. And my role in this presentation tonight is to talk to you about how it meets all of the relevant criteria in the Elbert County Code. There are about 29 applicable criteria when you look at the 21 criteria in the 1041, and you look at the 8 criteria in the special use review. And the lawyer part of me really wants to go through each and every one of those to tell you all about them, but since staff did such a thorough job already, and you have a hard stop at 10 o'clock and a lot of folks that we want to hear from tonight, I'm just going to focus on a couple that I think may be of the greatest interest to you all and to the public, given the public comments that we've received. We're certainly happy to go back and delve more deeply into any of the other criteria that you'd like to focus on, again, during the Q&A period. And our whole team will be here to answer all of those questions. So as Natalie described, you have a couple of different criteria that touch on the question of water quality, and water supply, and requires a criteria finding that it will not have an undue burden on available infrastructure. As was described in detail in our presentation, and also you have two narratives, the 1041 narrative and the SUR narrative, there's a pretty thorough description of how the water use will be managed and how water quality will be preserved with this project. As was just described in the presentation, we'll be avoiding all the wetland areas. We will not be using existing wells. We will not be drilling any new wells, and we will be bringing in all of the water from outside. And so all of those things combined will result in really virtually no impact on either water quality or quantity as a result of this project. You also have a couple of different criteria in your code that relate to the issue of preserving the environment, degrading the environment. You have criteria about noise, odor, wildlife, vegetation, and so on. There's a very extensive narrative on this subject in the 1041 application at section 3.3, and also some of the best management practices that Natalie just described. Also, as the staff noted in their staff report, there's really no odor or noise associated with the solar panel component of the project. There will be an application for an air quality permit to the state CDPHE associated with the construction component of the project, but that, of course, is short-term and temporary. And so as a result, the project really does mitigate virtually all of the impacts on air, view sheds, surface water, groundwater, wetlands, wildlife, and vegetation. And then lastly, you have a sort of very common catch-all criteria related to public health, safety, and welfare. As Adam presented to you a little bit earlier, there is a system of redundancy built into the design of this project that will help preserve safety and ensure the maximum safety possible with this type of project as well. BayWa, as Adam also described, uses the most current technology that is available in terms of mitigating risk for potential outcomes such as fire and so on. So this combination of redundancy and cutting-edge technology, the best equipment available, really results in the best possible situation when it comes to providing safety for a project like this. It also should be noted, as described in the staff report, that none of the emergency responder organizations, fire, sheriff, et cetera, have any objections or any concerns. All of their comments were responded to and addressed, and so for these reasons, we believe that it does in fact meet all of the criteria related to public health, safety, and welfare. So that is the conclusion of our formal presentation. As I mentioned, we do have our whole team available to answer questions, and we look forward to doing that during the Q&A and to speaking with you again at the end of the evening. Thanks for your time and attention to our project this evening.
Thank you all. Okay, so with that, I'd like to open the floor for public testimony. What I would like is for, I apparently get a look at a list. I will call you up, please. Thank you. When I call you up, please come to the podium. Again, represent your name and your address. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And please make them as non-redundant as possible. So you'll hear something being said. It's a good point, but it doesn't need to be repeated. I think there's about 25, 30 people. Doesn't need to be repeated that many times. So please try to keep on point and let's focus. With that, Clint Burring, I hope I pronounced that correctly. You're going to have to pick it up. Yes, please. It just slides out. It's a hardware problem.
Hello? Oh, there it is. Hi, my name's Clint Buring. I live at 9343 County Road 149. I'm a local farmer and rancher. My concerns with the projects are the impact on my industry. They say that there's not going to be any loss to local economy, but when you're chewing up everybody's farm ground and their ranch ground, tell me how that doesn't affect us. Other concerns that I have is water runoff. It's going to be sheets of glass, And with some of the storms that we've had here in the last few weeks, we've lost 5 county roads to washout. I don't know how this isn't going to make those problems worse. Other concerns that I have are snow drifts. A lot of my cattle personally graze along the boundaries of this. We're going to put up mesh fence, chain link, and all these other things. Some of the snows we get, as you guys know, they tend to come with a lot of wind. We're going to start seeing drifting problems. What's the chance of some of our cattle huddle up in some of these corners, get covered up by snow? You know, we have elderly people in our community that might need emergency services and won't be able to access roads. You know, I mean, our county guys do the best they can with the graders that they're provided with, but there's only so many of them. You know, another problem I have is we've got a FedEx guy that drives up and down 149 at about 90 miles an hour. I call the sheriff's department for assistance, and I tell you guys, no lie here, I was told, sorry for your bad luck, we don't patrol there. So they don't have a problem not patrolling our area. So I guess why would they care if there's a traffic problem where we live? They don't come down there anyway. I can't tell you the last time I seen a sheriff's officer in my county, in my part of the county. The fire department, they do what they can. It's volunteer. It's small. We had a small house fire down on County Road 26 and 149 2 winters ago, and it was an hour before we saw a fire truck. So if there's a battery fire or there's something else, what are we supposed to do? Wait for the fire department for an hour or better? Another thing, we had a lady that was supposed to come to talk about property values. I'm going to have to sell out and move. There's no way I'm living in the middle of this. I get no benefit from it, and I got to stare at it. I think that there's a lot of things that have never been looked into on these things that I think will affect agriculture in general. Wind farms being off the ground, with the wind we get, it's all going to be crop height. What kind of wind damage are we going to start seeing on our localized crop fields? Hail. I've heard about updrafts coming off these things from the heat domes. There again, there's not a lot of research into it. I don't know if it's convenient or it just hasn't been thought of yet. I'm so mad I'm shaking, I'm sorry. This project financially benefits a couple of people. It devastates the rest of us. My real estate agent was supposed to have come and talked to you guys tonight. She doesn't really see a way for me to even sell my property with disclosures and everything else about this project and the other one that's coming in south of us. This is devastating to a very small community, and I think that's why they pick on us. You know, they don't go to big populated areas and try to shove this down somebody's throat. They pick an area with 20 or 30 of us, so there's not a whole lot of us up here making a stink about it. There's better places for projects like this. I understand the tax revenue and everything is very good for our county, but we're not a poor county. We do pretty good for ourselves, I think. You know, there's Ordway, Crowley County. Nothing but hurt feelings and rattlesnakes grow down there. I don't see why they couldn't take advantage of the XL power line that's coming through our county anyway. They can tie into it right down there. Why not put this stuff down in a community that could use the tax money and utilize land that doesn't have any other purposes? You know, where we live is a lot of wheat, a lot of millet, and cattle. You know, we're not going to graze sheep in these things. Nobody in my community outside of the few that are financially benefiting from it want it. And, anyway, thank you guys.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Juliet Faust.
Hi, my name is Juliet Post, 41,000 County Road 46, Matheson, Colorado. I'm in attendance to formally request that this planning committee decline to forward this recommendation or deny without prejudice for the Shepherd Solar installment to the Elbert County Board of Commissioners. Currently, the county does not have and has not adopted a policy to rule or govern projects like this. Until a firm set of rules and regulations are in place, it would be irresponsible of community leaders to see what happens. If this project is allowed to begin construction with no governance, the county could be at risk for many unforeseen negative impacts. The comprehensive plan consistency. Elbert County's new comprehensive plan is being refined by the planning commissioners to better reflect what residents have consistently said that they value most: rural character, open space, working farms and ranches, responsible use of water, safe communities, and growth that fits the county rather than reshapes it. The revised plan places greater emphasis on protecting open landscapes, agriculture, wildlife habitat, and dark skies. Based on a draft map found on the Elbert County website, the area in which this project is located is labeled agriculture. Please note that the area on the map near and along I-70 is colored light pink to indicate future industry. This solar array is not personal residential solar. It is grid connected and should be considered industry. Public utility in this capacity does not belong in an area zoned for agricultural use. It would be more of a fit in an area projected for industry and commercial use. So does this proposal align with the goals of Elbert County Comprehensive Plan? The answer to this question is easy: no. The surrounding compatibility. Is the proposed change compatible with the existing neighboring land use? No. Taking large amounts of land out of ag production is not compatible with the area. All of the neighboring parcels are and will continue to be used for ag production. The right to farm Colorado statute. Will Elbert County remain rural, or will it become the next green energy trial plot? In 2018, Elbert County adopted the right to farm law. According to statute, that policy is meant to protect, conserve, and encourage the development and improvement of its agricultural land for production of food and other agricultural products. The environmental impact. Will this project harm the local environment, natural habitats, or historical resources? You've been told that there are no threatened species in the area, but there are burrowing owls. And this species is listed as a threatened species as they face continued population decline. And the Colorado Parks and Wildlife does classify them as a species of greatest conservation need. While the constructors wouldn't intentionally be eliminating them, being part of the destruction of their habitat would be directly harming them. Creating a lake effect with panels could be disturbing to migration and aquatic birds. Those misled birds can endure injury, exhaustion, or death from actual water being there. Creating an illusion of water is not a responsible act when preserving these protected birds. A project this large will be responsible for rerouting other wildlife that can cause more collisions with cars. Bad things happen to those animals. There's probable financial burden for cars if they do hit them. Additionally, if those animals are forced away from their current habitat, food, and water sources, they may starve. A large-scale development like this will fragment the habitats and reduce the biodiversity. Elbert County is home to 72 PL 566 dams. This would indicate that the area in Elbert County has determined that torrents of rain can cause hazards to the area. The change in the existing slope, elevation, and drainage would significantly affect those downstream. Even in projects that note little topographical change in the building plans, this still causes great risk to the water absorption versus runoff. This particular company has submitted a satisfactory plan for covering the ground. However, it may not work as planned with the extensive amount of soil compaction that will take place. Trial and error would not be a positive plan at this scale in an area that already experiences heavy drought conditions. Like many areas in the United States, Elbert County is rich in cultural resources, and I would be worried that a basic cultural resource inventory would not be sufficient in preserving the history that came before all of us here in this room.
Thank you, Ms. Post. Lori Ellison. Not yet.
Now, can you hear me? There it is. Okay, I'm just continuing with hers. Lori Ellefson, 34105 County Road 50, Simla, and President of the Double L Conservation District Board. Traffic and roads. Will it create unreasonable congestion or place an undue burden on the county's existing road networks? It has been published that will be an estimated 300 cars per day during construction. That number alone is concerning. How many of these are semi-trucks? Did you know that just one semi-truck is said to cause road damage equivalent to that of 9,600 passenger cars? Elbert County does a great job at keeping the roads safe for travel right now, specifically County Road 149. There will be an unreasonable burden on the county road maintenance budget if this many vehicles are projected to travel the area. It is part of the county's fiscal responsibility to make best use of funds. The current published comprehensive plan states that maintenance and infrastructure improvements are not currently keeping pace with the county's increasing traffic demands. So a published document by the county claims that it already cannot handle the roads as a whole. Adding this much burden in the area would be a gross misuse of funding and strain already thin staff and equipment. The current appropriated funds for road maintenance will not be able to cover this project. If it were being built on the future industrial route along I-70, those repairs would be brought to the state budget, not our county. Logistically speaking, interstates and highways are more equipped to handle large influx of traffic, as well as heavy byweight traffic. Police presence for traffic enforcement is also more readily available in the I-70 Highway 86 zone. We also have to be good neighbors and allow El Paso County Road and Bridge to have input on what impact this will have on them as well. The intersecting roads cover both counties. If there's an overabundance of maintenance and repair, it doesn't just affect the county monetarily, it also can have an adverse effect on the people who use this route to access their homes. Youth drive on this road, and the current condition is to the historical standard of Elbert County. With added traffic comes more gravel displacement like washboards and sandbars. This puts every traveler at risk and could impede emergency services response time. We have all seen one way or another what blizzards are like in southeastern Elbert County. Array of solar panels will no doubt create new drifting of snow in areas that have not been previously marked as high hazard areas. There is no way to create living snow fences or pre-made snow fences. This will greatly impact drivers in the area as well. Said before, requiring more use of funds, equipment, and staff from Elbert County to keep the road clear and safe. Health, safety, and welfare. If there is a fire in the containment area, how do we know what type of health risk that is causing? We don't. Chemicals and heavy metals are part of the process in many aspects of manufacturing. These panels would not be immune to that. We likely wouldn't know the true danger until it has adversely affected human life in the area. Should that fire travel outside of the containment areas, there is a great risk for wildfire. Additional traffic with drivers who are not familiar with our dirt roads, especially during construction, can cause undue risk to the local residents. In closing, the lack of policy and governance from our county doesn't protect this company, residents, or applicants that follow. My opposition to this is not against BayWa or its employees. The location and county governance must be addressed. Therefore, I will ask again that this request be declined or denied without prejudice. The current location and size do not make sense for our county. There is no actual benefit to us. It appears as though it will cause financial strain on our budget instead of bringing revenue. It does not align with Elbert County goals. It takes good, healthy, and ethically produced food off of our tables. Please pause and think about what is actually for the better good of our great county and its residents. Please do not vote to put dollars before your people. Thank you.
Thank you. Charlotte Fike.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Fike. My address is 39255 County Road 34. A lot of the things I had to say would be repetitious, so I will just ditto all the comments that have been said before me. One other concern that hasn't been addressed is hunting is a big sport in our area. There's a lot of people, I know some of our neighbors live off wildlife, and that's going to be a factor. Can people hunt around these solar fields? Is that, I don't know what that entails, but that would probably be a concern also. We live about a mile from the fields, but they're still going to impact us. I guess one of my other concerns is, does it raise the temperature in our area? I work with a group of engineers, and I was talking to them today, and one of them said, yes, it will definitely raise the temperature, and in the evening, your winds will be warmer. Those are concerns. Does it have an impact on the weather and the rain that we're going to receive? Is it going to, how does that impact that? Because that's an issue too. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Nanette Peters.
Good evening. My name is Nanette Peters. Address is 35560 County Road 183 out of Lyman. I'm on the very east side of Elbert County. First question I have is, has any of the members of the commissioner done any independent research? Have you gone to other areas that have these sites? Have you seen them with your own eyes? The information that I will be referring to is from a public meeting out of Claude, Texas. It was aired by Douglas Trent, and the speaker was Micah Warner. And on one of the slides, there was something that says it does not unduly increase the strain on the people. Well, the definition of unduly is more than necessary, reasonable, or acceptable. How do you define that? What is necessary to unduly increase someone's stress for having this around them? And as far as it not being detrimental to one's health, I guarantee you it's detrimental to the gentleman's health who's looking at selling his place. It's detrimental to my health for the fact that the other proposed thing, development that is not part of this meeting, so I'm not going to go into it, is going to be detrimental to my health for what it will do to my area. In Claude, Texas, they have a 1,300-acre site, and the local residents there said that they could see the light pollution from 25 miles away. This proposed site is almost 2,000 acres, so how can they say that it's not going to produce any light pollution that will be of consequence? They mentioned that there's going to be 219 construction crews. Where are they going to live? Are they going to put in a man camp? Does the county know what those man camps bring with them? Are you aware of the consequences to our law enforcement of those man camps? From the statements made from the communities that have already been subjected to these solar developments, speak wholeheartedly against them. In Claude, Texas, the EMS went from 3 calls a month to over 30. How is our local system, how are our local EMS going to handle that? We don't have the manpower. Additional traffic from the construction crews create an increase in crashes that were responded to by both city, county, and state law enforcement with 2 to 3 crashes per day. They were told that all workers had been through a vetting process. However, law enforcement contacted several instances of workers without licenses and with outstanding warrants. Landowners are having to repair fences from the traffic crashes. Is the county going to reimburse landowners when they have to repair their own fence? If the board decides to go against the majority of the affected residents who are against this, I would like you to consider the following. The wind farm development that is north of Lyman stated that they would hire a local. They did not. The county stated that all wind development traffic would be restricted to certain county roads, that the wind development would maintain those roads. However, this has not happened. They come across roads that they're not supposed to be on, and there are no consequences for them doing that. Sorry. The power line that was put through also stated to the county that the land would be reestablished and planted to the prior condition. Again, there are no checks and balances on this to ensure that it is done and no consequences for it not being done. What area population demands are you trying to fulfill with this development? So that was one of the slides that your developer had on there. And as far as the grid reliability, how are the solar panels going to, can't think of the word, how is it going to change when a transformer goes out or a line goes down because of the snow and wind? Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Buring.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Buring, 37191 Broadway Avenue, Matheson. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak tonight regarding the proposed farm in Elbert County. The question I need to ask is, do we know what this project will do to the living, functioning Colorado grassland ecosystem already in place? How will it affect the wildlife habitat, native vegetation, pollinators, migration, breeding, and ecological connectivity? It is known that the burrowing owl has been observed in this area. They are currently threatened in Colorado. The burrowing owl relies heavily on burrows made by the prairie dogs and other mammals. But protecting the burrowing owl only while it is physically nesting is not the same as protecting the habitat it needs to return to next year. Prairie dog colonies also provide habitat, shelter, and prey relationships supporting burrowing owls, mountain plovers, hawks, golden eagles, and many other prairie species. The county needs to evaluate the prairie dog ecosystem as an interconnected habitat. However, a biological survey is only as good as when, where, and how often you look. Owls migrate, birds nest seasonally, swift foxes use dens, bats are nocturnal and often require acoustic surveys, plants bloom at different times, and pollinators emerge seasonally. Wildlife does not recognize property lines. Pronghorn use large open landscapes and need connectivity between forage, water, and seasonal habitat. CPW maintains mapping for pronghorn overall range, migration patterns, migration corridors, winter range, and concentration areas. Thousands of acres do not have to become biologically sterile to cause an impact. They can become fragmented. We need to know how fencing, roads, panels, construction activity, and long-term operations will affect movement across and through the project footprint. Wildlife habitat is also vegetation, soil, and insects. Native shortgrass prairie supports nesting birds, small mammals, and pollinators. Colorado has more than 1,000 native bee species, and many native bees nest underground. Grading, trenching, compaction, herbicides, mowing, and changes in vegetation can alter ecological function even when land later looks green. A planted pollinator seed mix is not automatically an ecological replacement for established prairie community. Before the proposed solar project moves forward, I ask that all underlying wildlife and biological studies, survey dates and protocols, prairie dog mapping, burrowing owl surveys, raptor and grassland bird surveys, pronghorn information, mammal and den surveys, botanical and pollinator information, and agency correspondence be submitted for public review. I am not claiming that every species I have mentioned lives on every acre of this project. I am asking something much simpler. Have we looked thoroughly enough to know? I also have to pull it up real quick. Sorry. I also want to address the historic and archaeological resources that may be affected by the solar project. The Matheson area is not historically empty. It has documented prehistoric archaeological site known as 5EL140, the Matheson Hill site, which was significant enough to receive formal archaeological test excavations by the Colorado Department of Highways. This area also has historic ties to the Rock Island Railroad, early settlement, ranching and farming, and other historical features that helped shape the Matheson community. The problem is that the archaeological site locations in Colorado are often restricted from public view. That means residents cannot simply open a public map and determine whether known archaeological resources fall inside the area. So before this project is approved, I believe the county should require answers to a few questions. Has a complete Class 3 cultural resource survey been conducted across the area that will actually be disturbed? How many previously recorded archaeological historical sites fall within the project's area of potential effects? Has the Colorado State Historical Preservation Office reviewed the project and what it's finding? Once the archaeological resource is destroyed, we cannot put it back. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg Marshall.
Thank you, Chair and members of this panel. My name is Greg Marshall, and I live on 149 and County Road 26. I oppose this solar project, including the proposed battery storage facility. I also oppose out-of-state companies showing up in eastern Colorado attempting to install out-of-place entities in a rural setting. I live off County Road 149 south of Matheson. I frequent the route for the proposed project several times daily on my commute. All rural dirt roads in the vicinity of this project are subject to difficulty in travel whenever weather hits, including becoming impassable several times a year, and I do currently hold an active CDL. Exhibits, I have pictures of what hail will actually do to solar panels. I have these to share if you all want them. I would like to ask, how many tractor trailers, box trucks, flatbeds, and specific company vehicles can our community expect traveling down these roads during the installation of this solar panel and battery facility? 1,000? Over 100,000? County Road 149 will not be able to be maintained with that kind of travel on it, let alone any adverse weather hits. Solar panels in this area are not only an eyesore to the farmers and ranchers and rural community, but a horrible idea in its entirety. We consistently have blizzards, dust storms, and hail large enough to damage any kind of solar panels that might be installed by your company. There's an abundance of wildlife that will be cut off to grazing and routes to water from the installation of fencing or solar panels from themselves. When construction companies start digging and tearing into the ground with large equipment and vibrating the earth, everything from field mice, ground squirrels, and rattlesnakes go on the move to find a new home. This will create a dangerous situation for my neighbors or my kids that might happen to be playing outside. Furthermore, renewable energy companies are notorious for selling off their projects as time goes on, and equipment not performing as well as it did after the install. What does this company have to ensure that this project will be maintained and kept up to date with all the safety regulations, from fire and weather damage, and most importantly, the removal of everything in its entirety when these panels are old, outdated, decrepit, and obsolete for a choice of renewable energy? Who is going to be in charge of removing these panels and the battery facility? Who's going to ensure that there's enough money set aside for the maintenance and removal decades from now? Is this company going to even be around in 10 years? We've already heard the horror stories from farming communities about windmills never being removed, companies going out of business, farmers and ranchers are stuck with large, dangerous equipment and nowhere to turn. I have that exhibit right here. Colorado farmers struggle to remove old windmills. No legal obligation for the energy company. This is why removal is difficult. High removal costs, salvage value versus reality, private property complications, without specific removal clauses in the lease. Back to this. We've already heard, or your website, this company's website, says that they have 36 projects in 15 states and offers local job opportunities. Are you prepared to show this community here today the percentage of locals you have hired at any of your current projects? Because every time I've seen a large-scale construction project, it's always out-of-state contractors with out-of-state trucks staying in our local hotels. Quite the opposite of what's advertised. I'll end with these two specific questions. Where does Bayware get its over 100 years of agricultural experience woven into their DNA per your website? Second question, they brag about their global footprint. What other countries does your company do business with? I think that's a very important question. Elbert County is a right to farm county, not right to solar. You might want to have to update your logo there if this passes through. I've never seen so much sugarcoating in my life without any documentation of anything when I first entered this room. No pictures or videos to prove any of it. Just talk, good talk, right there. Everything's going to be perfect. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. Me and my neighbors haven't seen any of that. We need to see it because it looks really cute up there, but I don't believe any of it's true. The second lady that spoke said 2% of damage from hail and tornadoes. I doubt it. This is the first time they're in here, in Colorado. No state that they are currently performing work in has weather comparable to what we see here. There are 0 projects in our surrounding states, in our immediate surrounding states. There's one in Arizona, and I don't think Arizona has the same amount of weather that eastern Colorado has. With that, I ask this committee to please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try this. I may mess it up, but Avery Bott? That's probably it. Close enough.
No one else got up, so I might as well. But I am Alman Bate. I live at 395, I can't remember my address. I'm the closest living resident to this actual site. I actually just came because I had some questions for them today, because this, I only know of the project because I can see the site from my bedroom window. It's about 100 feet away from my house. I just came mostly to ask about how they specifically chose the location where it was being built. I know there are several agricultural plots in the area which haven't been used in at least several years with no growth on them. And it seems none of them are listed onto the project site. Like I said, I mostly came to ask about the construction plans itself, when it was going to take place. It looks like, from what I've heard, some of that's posted somewhere, but again, I've never been contacted about this. At this point, though, from what I've heard, I would raise a question, being that I am a licensed engineer and I've worked in renewable power for at least 10 years, primarily wind, but also hydro and solar in some cases. And I'd just like to ask, to what region is the power actually going, being that most of the wind turbines in the area are providing power to this, the metro area in Denver. And I know in a lot of other states, renewable power sites are giving power locally, but all the income from the power goes to other states. Those are really my main questions and concerns.
Mr. Chair, could you say his name again, please?
No, I'm going to have him say it again.
Okay.
Alman Bate, ALMONBATE.
And here's another one that I'm probably going to butcher. Dale, 1750 South Ellicott Highway, Callahan.
Del Valling, 1750 Ellicott Highway, Callahan. My biggest concern is none of us have received an environmental impact statement. Has that been provided to you? Has anyone received an environmental impact statement?
We won't answer questions to you as a participant. These folks will address that question when they come back. But please just ask your questions and address the Planning Commission. Just ask the questions outright.
Almost everything else has already been brought up, so
Fantastic.
appreciate your time, and please reconsider this development.
Thank you. That's the last person on my list. Are others around and available to speak? Please come forward.
Hello, give me a second here. I'm going to sign in.
There we go.
I apologize for not being on the list earlier, but I thank you, distinguished commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to say a few things. My name's Terry Ashcraft. I have the Ashcraft Centennial Farm and Ranch down there on County Road 42 at 41284. Matheson, Colorado. For the last 120 years, my family has been on the property. I'm going to tell you, I'm all for free enterprise. But I think in this case, the problems outweigh the assets. As far as free enterprise goes, this project is in name only. Because what free enterprise does, it brings jobs, it brings income, it's something that all the people around it, the business, get benefits from. I don't see that happening here. I've got issues with the groundwater. I've been told that there is possibilities that after an extended period of time, the ground is sterile. If that's the case, the runoff is extremely bad place to put it because I'm right below it, and my cattle drink from windmills, and I'm only 8 and 10 feet to water. So if there's any kind of runoff and any kind of problems with the ground, if it's going to kill the ground, when you have runoff, that has to go somewhere. And with the shallowness of our wells, I do have concerns. Kudos to all my neighbors for showing up. I think there's enough of us here to maybe, if anything, let's delay this, and I'll tell you the reason why I feel this way. There's another big project proposed going in next to it. If you take 6, 8, 10,000 and another one behind it, you get that kind of acres, you're going to have a large footprint that has no idea of what could happen in the future because it's never been that way before. That's huge. The whole thing of it is each and every one of us is going to stand there and we're going to take it. And we're going to take it in the shorts. And I'll tell you why we're going to take it in the shorts. Our land prices, our personal property taxes are bound to go up. Who wants to buy your property or your property or your property in the next 25, 30 years because they live right next to that big of a solar project? I think that's something that definitely needs to be thought about. I'm not here to try and sway too much, but I would want you to listen and reconsider. Let's wait on the final. Let's get some more input from these other places out there that's proposing to build, and you guys know what I'm talking about. These folks have said what concerns them. Our property tax will go up, but the value of the property, if we're forced to sell or have to sell, will go down. Nobody wants to live next to one, and it's not these folks' problem either. That's just something that happens in the project itself. I want to leave you guys with one thought, one thing to think about. And I respect your decision either way. But you might remember, you don't remember when it was invented, but about 100 years ago, asbestos became the #1 hot spot. The guy who invented it was even put up for a Nobel Prize. He didn't win it, but he should have, maybe. I don't know. What had happened 60 years later, what did we find out about asbestos? That's all I'm going to say. Think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to come up and chat? Going once. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. We're going to close public comment now. Would the applicant like to come up and address the questions, concerns, comments that were raised by the community? Please come up front.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I believe the next part is where you have the opportunity to ask us questions, and then we do the wrap-up at the end, but we're certainly happy to do the wrap-up now.
That's not how I run my meetings. Thank you. What we do is we give the applicant a chance to respond to what they've heard from the community.
Got it. We'd be glad to do that. Would you mind if we took a 5-minute recess so we can kind of organize our thoughts and respond in a coherent fashion?
We'll come back here at 5 till. Okay, folks, let's go ahead and gather back around. Pretty close. So I think everybody's settled in, so if you want to go ahead and start, we can go ahead and address the questions and comments and concerns raised by the citizens of the community.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Carolyn White again. I'm going to address just a couple of the issues that were raised during public comment, and then I'm going to ask some of my colleagues on the development team to come up and address some of the others. Louder, okay, closer to the microphone. Okay, I'll start with just a couple of the technical and documentation issues. There were a couple of folks who commented, hey, maybe you should just delay this application, pass some new regulations, and then, hear it again when the new regulations are in place. And I think and your county attorney's probably already advised you that an application is required to be considered under the regulatory framework that was in place at the time of the application, and that is the standard by which this application is being reviewed and is proper for it to be reviewed. But that's not to say that we didn't take into account the pending changes that the county is considering. There is an extensive analysis of not only the Elbert County existing comp plan, but the new comp plan that's under consideration in the narrative, and we're happy to speak to any specifics about that. There's also extensive consideration of the new pending but not yet approved alternative energy regulations, and as was noted in the staff presentation, for example, some of the setbacks that are being proposed with this project are significantly larger than that which is required under the existing code, even though that is not the requirement today. So I just wanted to mention that as it relates to the comments about delay. There were also several comments saying, hey, we haven't seen the environmental report, we don't think the technical reports have been prepared, or perhaps they haven't been reviewed, or you don't have enough information. And so I just want to make sure that I say for the record that the record does include all of the application materials and all of the attachments that were included in the two applications, the 1041 and the special use review, and they're listed at the end of our narrative. And I'm just going to list a couple of them because some of them are the specific ones that some of the members of the public commented they thought were not produced. So in addition to the actual application itself, the exhibits, civil construction drawings, property owner land information, there's a traffic control plan, there's an economic impact analysis, there's a drainage report, there's a visual analysis, there's a vegetation management plan, there's a geotechnical engineering report, there's a letter from Colorado Parks and Wildlife summarizing the coordination on wildlife mitigation techniques that have been incorporated into the project. There's an analysis of the total percentage of both solar and agricultural lands in Colorado. Some really good data in there, and we can delve more deeply into that if you'd like. There's also a decommissioning plan that talks specifically about what will happen at the end of the useful life of this project and how it will be responsibly decommissioned. Those are just the exhibits to the special use review. I have most, but not all of them here in this binder. And then we have the exhibits to the 1041, which includes frequently asked questions about battery energy storage systems, the economic impact analysis, a stormwater and drainage report, a traffic control plan, the Parks and Wildlife letter, the external stakeholder engagement letter, the decommissioning plan, vegetation management plan, a wetland delineation report, geotechnical engineering report, and air quality analysis, the Phase 1 environmental survey, threatened and endangered species memo from an expert in this area, the public revenue comparison, the detail of how those calculations were arrived at, the visual analysis appendix, and something called the unanticipated discoveries plan, which delineates what will happen in the event that during construction, even though no cultural or archaeological or paleontological resources have been mapped to date, if some are encountered during construction, this plan dictates exactly how the construction team will respond and call in the appropriate experts to evaluate that at that time. So all of those documents are part of the record. We have not provided a great level of technical detail on each and every one of those things, although we certainly are happy to if you want it. But I just want to make sure that everyone's clear that all of those documents are available. They're all public and they're all part of the record for you today. Just a couple last points, and then I'll step down and ask one of my colleagues to speak to the rest of the items. There was some question about sort of enforcement. How do we make sure that this operator will do everything that they say they're going to do, that they're supposed to do? You as the county, of course, have extensive enforcement authority through your county code, through the various agreements that are required to be entered into as part of this application, and you have the ability to issue a notice of violation, to issue a cease and desist, and to otherwise enforce the code as it relates to any aspect of this operation of this facility as it moves forward that you believe may not be in accordance with the county code, whether that's noise or something else. So there is accountability built in. Also, the county can inspect this property at any time during the operation and ensure that it's being operated consistent with the terms of the permit that has been approved. So you have that additional measure of enforcement for ensuring accountability moving forward. The last thing I was going to say is that I know there have been some comments about local hiring, and that certainly is a goal of BayWa to hire locally as much as possible. And in fact, I just learned that there is a jobs fair that's being put on in conjunction with the chamber here within the next 30 days in order to start that process of trying to recruit local contractors to be part of the construction team for this project. So with that, I'll sit down and ask one of my colleagues to come to the podium and speak to some of the other technical aspects.
All right, thank you everyone, and again, thank you all who participated in the public comment. Again, really appreciate your thoughtful questions about our project and happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Again, I'm Natalie Aiello, I'm the permitting manager for Shepherd Solar. I'm also an environmental scientist by background. I got into this field because I'm very passionate about protecting our environment and our wildlife. It's something that I take great pride in, both professionally and personally. For this project, extensive surveys were conducted of the project area, both of environmental resources, including wildlife, as well as cultural resources. The biological surveys, I know there was a few questions on those, so happy to speak to that. Those were conducted by biologists based here in Colorado and familiar with the environment and the species that are in this area, and no observations, I continue my statement that no observations of threatened or endangered species were observed on site. There have been no observations of burrowing owls. Personal fun fact, it is my favorite bird species, and there are no burrowing owls on site. Those surveys were completed prior to constructing our design, and the intention of the timing of that was that if there were habitat identified, we would avoid that with our site plan. However, that was not identified. And so another measure that we have identified in Appendix J, which is an extensive list of all of the mitigation measures that we have planned for the project to support it through construction and operations, includes pre-construction surveys. So we've already done the surveys, we have a good familiar understanding of the site, we're going to do it again before construction. And if any species are observed or their habitats, there was a specific comment about swift fox. We've also got, I believe it's I forget the exact buffer, but if there are swift fox dens, we've got an agreement in there to avoid those and buffer those dens. And so I can assure you that this project will continue to be designed and constructed and operated with the utmost respect to environmental resources. And all of that, of course, is in addition to the wildlife corridors that we have already discussed, as well as the fence design. We will also be incorporating a native seed mix. Currently, most of the land that's currently in the development is either active agricultural land or degraded shortgrass prairie. So we will be installing a native seed mix that is expected to improve the environmental quality of the area, and we will be developing that seed mix in consultation with local experts, including Double L Conservation District, who has already provided comment on some of the seed mix selections that we have, as well as vendors in the area that are familiar with the habitat and what would thrive in this area while being realistic and manageable for vegetation height limits that we would want to maintain for solar. Carolyn noted this a little bit earlier, but there was an environmental impact analysis included in the application. It's in section 3.10 of the 1041 narrative. It is extensive and provides a thorough overview of all of the environmental resources on site, as well as any mitigants that we can incorporate to reduce any potential impact to those resources. On cultural, I do want to speak, and I don't know if this will work, but hopefully it will. I do have a slide, and forgive me, I'm going to have to go through pretty much the full presentation to get to it, but we did do a cultural resource survey that included both the desktop review as well as a site survey specific for cultural resources, and that was done by an archaeologist based here in Colorado. So there are 2 homesteads that are on site. If you've driven off of County Road 149, you've probably seen them. They are from the early 1900s. We will be avoiding those entirely with our project, so there will be no impacts to those resources whatsoever. There is also, based on desktop data that's available from the state, an archaeological site, and that is also located outside of the project boundary and will not be impacted whatsoever. We also have the Centennial Farm directly to the east of our project location. However, the mitigants that we have in place to protect all adjacent neighbors will also be protective of the Centennial Farm. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we will have an unanticipated discoveries plan in place. So the intention of that is if during construction a cultural resource is found, and again, there will be extensive training of the on-site workers on how to identify these resources. If that is found, it outlines a very thorough protocol of who to call, when, it has time-bound limits on when that needs to occur, setbacks and buffers to ensure that that resource is adequately buffered and protected from construction activities until an archaeologist can come out to evaluate the resource and recommend further steps. And I believe that is the bulk of what I wanted to present, and I will turn it over to my colleague, Cody, who is here to speak on construction.
Evening, everybody. Cody Ledwig, Director of Construction for BayWa. To address a few of the questions, we've got quite a few to unpack here today. I guess just to start on the concerns about hail and what the weather can do to these panels. So the current technology and the technology moving forward, on top of just the panel technology itself, we have now what's called hail stow features on all the tracking systems. Basically, when our MET stations, our weather stations detect that there's going to be a hailstorm within the area, it will tilt the panels in what it believes is the best way to tilt them, whatever angle that is, to where the hail is not going to hit it directly face-to-face perpendicularly. Much like a rock would hit your windshield driving down the road. Yes, you have a chance of cracking your windshield, but how often do we see rocks that pop up off of trucks, things like that, that just end up ricocheting off of your windshield and doesn't crack it or dent it? You may see some chips on your hood of your vehicle, but you don't see your windshield crack every single time that you may see a pebble go down the highway and hit you at 85 miles an hour. So all that to say, the technology that's coming out that we're moving forward with on all these hail stow features prevents these panels from being damaged. Damaged panels cost us a lot of money, right? We can't make these profitable sites if we're continuously having to replace panels every time there's a hailstorm or every time there's a heavy windstorm out there. So it's in our best interest to make sure that we do not have cracked panels as much as we possibly can, thus decreasing the amount of damaged panels that we're going to see moving forward on any of our sites that we're building. Moving forward past that, I know a big one was the road usage. We do have to enter a road usage agreement with the county in order to build this site. A lot of that will entail a survey on the road in the very beginning to detail what the road looks like today, what condition it's in, whether it's perfect, pristine, whether it's washboarded today, what have you. During the construction of the project, we will ensure that we have posted speed limits for our construction workers and our construction workers alone, right? This may be slower than what we have out there today what the rest of the county does have to follow. This is to prevent washboarding, potholing, things of that nature on your roads. We understand that high speed and lots of traffic will do that to these roads. But we want to try to keep the dust down to keep any of the people on the roads safe, anybody that's next to the road safe, and less affected from the dust that the roads will create with a heavier amount of traffic for the period of construction. This then goes into the road improvements that we may or may not do with the county, depending on what the road use agreement is with the county, to ensure that once we leave, the county is satisfied with the road condition. Generally, it's in a better condition than where we find it. So that's part of our conditions to build this site as a road use condition, that until it's closed out, we cannot close out this site. Let's see, we're moving forward from there. I know it's been touched on some. We're going to have a job fair coming up here soon to start looking at who we can hire here locally, whether it just be independent people, independent contractors, what have you. Chances are, yeah, we're going to bring in people from outside of Elbert County to build this project to some degree. I'll be here. I'm not from Elbert County. That's part of my job. I travel around the nation and build these sites. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have local people as well to build them. I think the bigger effect for this down the road for Elbert County is going to the people that maintain this site for the 40-year life cycle of this site. 1 and 2 years of great work and great employment is amazing for any county that's out there. But long term, having stable jobs for people to spend an entire career with is, in my opinion, more important for Elbert County and the sustainability for Elbert County than the 1 or 2 years of construction life cycle of this project. I think that covers everything that we had gathered from the community. Always open to more. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. With that, we'll move to a board-only discussion. And we're going to start on the left-hand side over here, or my left, with Dee Dee.
They all left.
I'm pretty sure they'll get back up there.
Hope so. That's fine. Well, I'm just going to throw this out there to whoever's in charge of whatever. One thing that I heard from one of the residents and just gave me a sickening feeling is this man camp type thought process. Where are you going to put all these guys that are going to be out there working on this? And what's the plan?
Sure. So we're projecting at peak capacity during building this is 219 people, roughly, on this site. We're not doing man camps. That's not anything that we've ever done across any of our sites across the nation. That did take quite a few more people than this even. Most of the people, if they are to travel in from outside of this area, they either utilize hotels, they utilize local rental houses, or they bring in RVs, right, to local RV type spots. To the people that travel across the nation to build these, for however many of those that it ends up being for this county, if they have to travel 45 minutes to an hour to find a suitable housing situation, that's not uncommon. Obviously, they want to try to stay as close to the project as possible. It's the most equitable for them to do that. But if there is not available housing for them within a 5 or 10 mile range, I drove in from Denver today. That's not a long drive. Neither is Lyman for these types of individuals. So no, we're not going to set up any kind of man camp. We'll utilize local housing as much as we possibly can, as much as you have in this county, and then go from there.
And what about the RVs? Where would they be parked?
If you have any local RV slots in this area, whether it be RV campgrounds that you currently see, a lot of times we see individuals, farmers and ranchers that will set up several RV spots around their homes. I don't know what's acceptable here in Elbert County to do with that, but we certainly see locals take advantage of that a lot of times. Otherwise, wherever the local closest RV spots are. There's usually more of them out there than what you think once you start looking for them.
Okay. Let me see, I had a couple other things. I don't know why this glared at me when I went through. I only made it through about 600 pages of the 3,000. But it said that you're not going to be, that there's a need for large equipment, but you were not going to be purchasing it from anywhere here in the county, so it's not added into the dollar figures. There's a pretty big place right here in Elbert County that has equipment, so I'm just wondering why it was purposely excluded from all of the calculations.
I can speak a little bit on the construction equipment itself. Most construction companies already own the equipment that they're going to be using, and/or they lease it, on a continual basis. I think maybe you might be referring to the equipment on the solar side itself, inverters, transformers, things of that nature. To which I think Natalie, you may be able to answer some more of those questions.
Yeah, no, it wasn't on. It had anything. Didn't have anything to do with the panels or any of that, but it said that it specifically says, let's see, I think that's page 216, 9 point something, that the equipment purchases would not be coming from the county. So, I mean, that's, if they lease them and whatever, that's fine too, but I would hope that you would use the county for any of the kind of things that we have here in the county before going outside of the county.
I can tell you, I know for maintenance of all equipment and repairs, certainly local is where most all companies are going to try to utilize. A local individual or local company is going to be far swifter to get equipment repaired from than trying to find anybody else.
Okay. I had one other one, just hold on for 1 second here. Well, I think I have a fellow commissioner that wants to ask that next question of you, so I'll just, I'll end with that then, Chair. That'll do it for me.
Thanks, Stevie. Go ahead, Kyle.
Hey, so I got a few questions for you guys, but my first one is I noticed on one of your exhibits there's two residential structures that are fairly close to the project. Is that correct?
Yes, there are more. There is a specific requirement within the 1041 to provide a map of all residences within 1,300.
Yeah, but I think there's two that pretty much border on your guys' I don't want to say property line, but leased area, correct?
Yes, there's one in the southwest corner that's adjacent to the southern portion of the project, and then there's another in the southeast corner as well. And then there are other properties to the east.
Yeah. So let's focus so much on the southwest one, and then the one that's to the west.
Of course.
The property that's to the west, I believe it's either a relative or a property owner that you guys are in agreement with, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, so my question is, why was there a buffer, I don't know how many acres, but a large amount of acres just to the east of them that has no panels, but then the home residential structure that's to the southwest, those panels are right up against them?
Those were identified as part of the lease agreement. We do also have setbacks from the property in the south portion of the project. So there are setbacks from that property.
So part of your lease agreement then was have a bigger buffer to the people that you're working with, but anybody that is other property owners, like one that's in the audience now, you can have it 100 feet from them. And I know you're following setbacks there, but I want to make sure that was discussed in your lease agreement negotiations, correct?
I was not part of the lease agreement negotiations, so I can't speak to specifically what was discussed. I just work from the lease boundary that was agreed to. In terms of the resident that is directly south or adjacent to our project in the south, we have made multiple attempts at contact and welcome. It's still an open door. to have conversations about our project. They've been receiving all of the same mailers and information and opportunities to engage in public comment, as has everyone in this room. And we really meaningfully want to try and continue the conversation with them. And so I'm happy to continue that discussion further, and we can provide our contact information.
Okay, but not a question to you, just a statement. I'm sure sending a mailer to somebody that's going to be within 100 foot of a solar panel probably doesn't reflect them positively to reach out to you. That's going to change. But we'll go to my next question. So besides, I believe you guys provided a statewide paper that was cited about property values. Can you provide some other evidence of how this doesn't decrease property values?
Last question.
Yeah, my question is, what evidence do you have that a solar project such as this would not decrease property values from the surrounding neighbors?
We've commissioned a study on that specifically for this area, and the study showed that it would have no impact on property values, and it looked at.
So my question to you is that that's fantastic that the study was done, but we're going from grazed and dry land to potentially a solar project within 100 feet of a person's property, and you truthfully don't believe that would affect in any way a property value?
The study that we commissioned shows no impact, and we've seen similar studies of that nature in other parts of the country.
Okay. So then next, let's go to your site justification. Why was this particular site chosen?
And apologies if I can add an additional point on
Absolutely,
the property
please.
values. So the person who completed that study did contact realtors for projects and parcels that were adjacent to or around other solar projects, specifically in Colorado, 29 other solar projects in Colorado, and the conversations with those realtors specifically did not identify.
So my question for you is realtors or appraisers?
I understand them to be characterized as brokers. That is not my specific.
Okay, which should be different than an appraiser, but I appreciate the input. So then back to the question.
Appraisers were also interviewed for that study.
What?
Appraisers were also interviewed.
So thank you for clarifying that. So then back to, why was this particular location selected?
Yes, so this particular location was selected because of the existing tri-state transmission line. We really try to site our projects, as I mentioned, alongside existing transmission corridor that allows us to keep the project footprint as small and compact as possible. You do also need to have relatively large tracts of land for solar projects, and so that was another factor in consideration. Additionally, we felt confident that we can avoid environmental impacts to the resources on this site, and so that's another further consideration. For this project, we did look at several alternative layouts as well on site as potential alternatives, but found that the one that we have presented before you tonight is the best and most suitable layout.
Okay, so you said alternative site layouts. What about alternative site locations? Were any of those looked at as well?
We have been doing greenfielding in Colorado for a number of years. Again, I haven't been a part of those, and I was already on this project by the time that the lease was executed, so I don't exactly know what specific sites were considered at the time of this exact project location, but it is something that we regularly review and screen for.
Okay, so it is practice then to look at alternative actual site locations, not just alternative site layouts.
Yes, and of course, with that, there are important considerations in the sites that we do decide to move forward with. The largest is landowner interest. Obviously, we want to work with people who are consenting. We don't have eminent domain ability, nor is that something that we would do. And so we want to work with consenting landowners, which we have found on this project.
Thank you. To the construction, sorry, I don't remember your name, but you did mention, and I fully understand, you're not going to find 219 people in Elbert County to work this project. But what do you think percentage-wise of Elbert County residents do you think would be able to be hired onto this? And my question leans is, you're so close to El Paso County with a much larger population density, so what are your thoughts on that?
So I don't know the stats on Elbert County, right? I don't know how many tradesmen we have that are electricians that are here, equipment operators, so on and so forth. Generally, in areas that have a decent population around them. You're looking somewhere between 30 and 40% is very common. We've seen as high as 75 to 80%. I'm not going to say that that's common. So, generally, yeah, like I said, about 30 to 40% if we have a decent population around here that is, of this type of trade of work is what we generally see.
I mean, because the two closest towns would be Simla and Matheson, and I'm sure you guys have driven through those. So I would be probably caution with you, but that closer to that 20 to 30%. So I appreciate you just stating that. And then for my next question, is this privately funded or is there any federal funding for this?
This is a privately funded project.
Perfect, okay. And that kind of leads me into, I guess, some of the environmental things. And I appreciate that I did review the ESA and the cultural survey. I love that, the fact that you guys you're avoiding any of the archaeological sites that were there. But did you guys work closely? I know you worked with the Elbert County Historical Office, but did you work with SHPO as well?
No, we have not consulted with SHPO. That's typically done for projects when there's a federal nexus, i.e. Federal funding or a federal permit that's needed. None of that is needed for this project. However, in the unanticipated discoveries plan, if there is a resource that's found, we will be consulting SHPO.
Okay, I was just curious. I'm not saying you guys have to go above and beyond, but just out of curiosity. And then going back to, I know you guys talked about CPW a lot. Did you guys get some input from U.S. Fish and Wildlife?
Yes, we did also consult with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Again, that was done voluntarily because there's no federal nexus, again, for this project. Their recommendation, and we spoke specifically with a grasslands biologist, so she's very familiar with this area. Her recommendation was that she didn't see any concerns from her perspective and encouraged us to continue working with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and she was satisfied with the biological survey that we had provided her for review.
Okay, and I know that's not uncommon that they want you to work with the local Parks and Wildlife. So then leading into the actual electrical demand. So you guys stated that the project will support regional electrical demand. What percentage of that power generated will remain actually in Elbert County?
The question was what percentage of the electricity will remain?
Yeah, what percent of the power that you guys are obtaining is actually going to stay within Elbert County?
It's hard to say. Yeah, I mean, the grid is kind of like a big bathtub, and you put water in there, and it can flow where the power is most.
Who owns the substation that you guys are next to, or building next to?
This will be, well, it's tri-state territory, so it's now within the Southwest Power Pool.
So then one of our conditions for the approval, especially for the 1041, is the needs and benefits must outweigh the county's losses. So besides and beyond the tax revenue, what specific county benefits would be kind of weighed against the conversion of changing dry land and grazed land over to a solar project?
You're asking what county benefits above and beyond?
Yeah, well, what kind of benefits is Elbert County going to receive from the solar project?
Beyond the tax revenue?
Beyond tax revenue, yep.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, there's revenue associated with ongoing operations of the facility. So we performed an estimate of how much there would be spent in county from ongoing operations, and BayWa has made some contributions to date to the community and intends to continue to, including donation to Big Sandy Fire District.
And besides Big Sandy, what are the other contributions that have been made?
Sponsored the county fair, the 150-year celebration, volunteered at the county fair. Done.
Okay, so then that kind of leads me back to construction. So I know we talked about 219 jobs. How many jobs after the facility is built are going to be actually to man that solar project, being how large it is?
Yeah, so you're going to see 2 full-time employees on site all the time. Past that, then you're going to look at other contractors that are going to be used on the site to do different maintenance activities, such as mowing, maintaining roads that are on the site, taking care of any other issues that are larger than what a two-man crew can do. You know, your typical maintenance type activities are going to be sourced locally. It doesn't make sense to ship in some guys from, say, New York City or whatever to come mow the grass for you out here. So it will be local type contractors that'll be used for that. So, you know, two is the official answer on top of, you know, whatever contractors we need to utilize on a regular basis out here.
Are you looking for those 2 full-time employees to be Elbert County residents? I know it's hard to say, but I got to ask.
I mean, it's hard to say that. It makes the most sense, though, right? I don't know many people that want to travel that far on a day-to-day basis for 40 years, you know, as opposed to somebody that can travel 10 miles down the road or what have you. So, you know, chances are you're going to find somebody from Elbert County here locally to travel to this site on a daily basis.
I appreciate that. Going back to, and I'm sorry to kind of skip around here, but CPW requested some additional wildlife measures. I know you guys mentioned having specific kind of wildlife openings within your gates, but what type and what is the height of the fencing being kind of proposed around your arrays?
Yes, so the recommendation from CPW was to use woven wire fencing, which is what we are going to be using with no barbed wire, so it'll have a smooth top. The fence height proposed currently is 8 feet. Understand that deer can maybe jump 8 feet, but again, that's why we're not having a barbed wire on top. And again, we'll only be fencing the arrays in the substation and BESS area and leaving the wildlife corridors intact to allow for continued movement.
How many wildlife corridors are you guys projecting?
I believe there's at least 2, technically 3, and then also in consultation with CPW, they were also pleased with the road setbacks that we had proposed because they said that that can function as additional wildlife corridors along the edges of the project and help lessen the likelihood of a wildlife and vehicle incident.
Okay, thank you. So I got 2 more questions real quick for construction. I know you guys said you're going to bring in your water. How many water trucks daily during construction?
So that's going to vary throughout construction, and you know, depending on what time of year we're in, right? The rainier type season, we're going to need less trucks to keep dust down. I believe when we projected it before, we're looking max around 21 a day. You know, all the way down to, you know, 1 or 2, just depending on, again, time of year, stage of construction, things like that.
Okay, and then besides water trucks, how about heavy machinery or semis? How many projected entering and exiting per day?
Projected entering, exiting per day, you know, I don't know on the semis itself. Again, that varies depending on the time of the project. But I think we're projecting somewhere around an average traffic of around 300 vehicles a day. That includes the traffic of construction workers coming in and leaving in the morning, as well as semis coming in with material, equipment, what have you, on average throughout the...
Yeah, are you counting the 300 as entering and exiting?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. And then my last one, is there any plans to either pre-construction or post-construction to sell this project? And the reason I ask this is there's been a lot of promises made that the roads are going to be kept, everything's going to be in compliance throughout the project, but you know, these projects last, what, 35, 40 years? So are there plans now, either pre-construction or post, to sell this project to a different type of entity or shareholder?
No, we have no current plans to sell this project. If we did, they would be held to the exact same conditions, and that's required in your current regulations, so there wouldn't be anything special needed to address that. All the same applicable conditions and promises that we have made, they will also be held to, in addition to the mechanisms that the county has in place for enforcement.
No, and I appreciate that. I know, but I appreciate when you stood up there and you actually told us what you're looking to do, how to improve roads, but all the times when things are sold, that kind of does drop down. So again, that's all the questions I had. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yes, and if I may, one more benefit to the county that was not discussed. With the SUR, we also have to provide a 2% of construction cost fee to the county. As you might imagine, that is quite a large sum, so it'll be an additional financial benefit to the county.
No, and I appreciate the financial side of it. Thank you so much. I was really more looking for on jobs and stuff like long-term type things for the residents. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ken Madsen. Oh, yeah, okay.
You are going to have to get a lot closer.
Yeah, I guess I could do. Okay. So first of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about the firefighting. you may or may not be able to answer these questions. Did the fire department give you a response time to get to your facility?
I don't think that they've given us an exact response time. What I can say is that we have been working in lockstep with Big Sandy Fire Protection District since 2023, and we'll continue to do so, and we've incorporated basically everything that they've asked for into our project.
Okay, was there any discussion with them about any additional equipment they would need? Because, obviously there's lithium batteries there. If they catch on fire, toxic fumes go up, and I don't know that our existing fire departments have the necessary equipment.
Yes, I do not think there's any specialized equipment that would be needed to respond to an incident at the site. Really, the most important measure is maintaining that defensible space. And then we are also providing funding to them to support their wildland fire response. They have a number of equipment needs that we will be sponsoring. And then one thing that also has not yet been mentioned that I did also want to bring up is that we will be incorporating a water tank on site. That's at their request. It's a quite large 30,000-gallon water tank, and that will be available for use if there was a need on our project, and similarly, if there was a need for a response in the area, and that will improve their response times. They'll have access to that on a 24/7 basis, same as to all gates to our site. They'll also have round-the-clock access to that, and we'll have a Knox box and Knox pads on those gates for them to be able to enter the facility, and we also will have our local personnel that will be responding in the event of an incident as well.
This is just more a comment, because the one thing that happens here when there's a wildfire is multiple units go to the fire. And I guess my concern would be, if they're all out on the wildfire, who's protecting, if there's a fire at your place? I know it would be an odd thing to occur, but that's something that would need to really be considered in our community, because
Yes.
that's what happens here.
Yes, of course. And we will have an emergency response plan in place that will work with both Elbert County Office of Emergency Management and Big Sandy Fire Protection District on, and we'll include that as a consideration in our emergency response plan.
Next, I'm going to go a little bit on the decommissioning bond. When is that going to be purchased, and of what size?
Yeah, the decommissioning bond would be calculated based on the estimated cost to remove all of equipment and return it to pre-construction state, down to 4 feet below the surface of the ground. And we would ensure that that would be in place prior to the beginning of construction.
And does that adjust for inflation as well?
It takes inflation into account, absolutely.
I guess next I'd like to go on to roads. So I see there's a recent letter here from our county engineer where we have, I guess, a couple of roads that are proposed to have all the construction equipment go on. I assume at this point it's still just a proposal, nothing's been solidified?
We'll have the solidified road use agreement in place before construction. Again, that's a requirement prior to construction.
With that, so I know there's talk about the roads need to be evaluated first in the beginning as well as the end. Who is responsible for doing that analysis, first of all?
So we would do that alongside Elbert County. That's a side-by-side evaluation. I'm happy to do it at the exact same time in the same truck. And that survey is done, typically a video survey to document the road conditions.
And the survey, so I see in the proposal there was talk of about 3 miles of road that needs to be rebuilt. And I also see there's a indication there's a total of 30 miles of roads that will be used for haul routes. So how much of the roads are going to be reviewed in this analysis?
So what would be reviewed for the analysis would be the final haul routes that we have agreed upon. Again, our current traffic plan considers multiple different routes. And so once we agree upon the final proposed routes for the county and come to that road use agreement, that's what would be surveyed, if that makes sense. So it's kind of whatever final roads are used, where what will be surveyed. And then you also touched on a road improvement. I just wanted to note that that's not related to our project. That's been a separate ask of Road and Bridge, and one that we have agreed to. We will be improving a 3.5-mile stretch of County Road 54.
And then I saw there was an indication of a couple of evaluations that weren't done yet, and that there was information sent to CDOT. Have we received any response back from them yet?
Are you talking specifically about Road and Bridges and Public Works' comments, or what are you specifically referring
Trying to remember where I got it from.
to?
So it specifically was saying that a level 2 turn lane evaluation or level 3 traffic impact study was not provided.
Yes, and again, that will be completed prior to the road use agreement to inform that agreement.
So I assume at this point in time, we don't have even a draft agreement that we're looking to put in place as far as the roads?
No, we do not yet have a draft agreement, but we have had multiple discussions with Road and Bridge on this topic, and their considerations have been reflected in the current materials that are in front of you.
I think that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey there. I have a few questions of my own, but I did want to start with questions from the public that I don't think you addressed. I'd like to first just start with the issue of water runoff. We particularly heard testimony that there's concern that animals that are downstream from this project are going to be negatively impacted by toxic water. So can you please address that?
Yes, I can. If you give me just a moment, I can pull up the exact location for water protection measures in our application. Give me one moment. It's in the 1041 narrative.
While she's looking for that, I will speak to an individual brought up soil sterilization from the panels that potentially could happen is what their concern was. I have not seen this happen on any of my sites I've built across the nation thus far. I'm not saying it hasn't happened anywhere. But from my understanding, there's not enough heat that's created from the panel types that we have selected for this project that would cause such soil sterilization. It's not in our benefit to cause that to happen. Vegetation on site tends to keep water where it needs to be, keep soil where it needs to be. If we lose that vegetation and we start having runoff because of it, that causes much greater issues for us, as well as looking at down the road decommissioning, things of that nature. If you have sterilized soil that you can't commission the ground back to agricultural use afterwards, then that then costs even more money to completely take this down. So, from what I'm seeing across the nation, from what I've built across the nation, we don't have any soil sterilization issues. Again, this may be due to our selection of the panels that we have and the heat that they actually put off versus anybody else that you may or may not have heard of. I don't know. But we're not seeing that across our board. It's not in our best interest to see that happen across the board. That costs us money. So we're not looking to have that happen for our sites at all. So as far as that's concerned, I hope that answers that question for the individual that asked that.
So your testimony is that you have not witnessed any sterile ground because of these solar farm projects. And how long have you been working in the industry?
I've been in the industry for 10 years now. I have not seen it. I'm looking at sites right now currently that have been in commission for 30 years, some sites that they are decommissioning currently. So I'm not seeing that in my experience whatsoever. On the contrary, it usually costs us the greatest amount of money in O&M, operations and maintenance, to mow the grass and maintain the grass underneath these panels. So we're seeing more vegetation grow than not.
And then if I may, I also just wanted to note there in Appendix J of the application, which details our mitigation measures, there are over 20 measures in place that we are proposing to protect both surface water quality and groundwater quality. Additionally, the project will have a stormwater management plan in place and an erosion and sediment control plan. We've provided the grading, erosion, and sediment control plan in your application materials. And again, the site has been designed in full compliance with the mile-high flood drainage districts, which is a requirement of Elbert County. They are quite stringent and require evaluation of existing conditions and proposed conditions and how to minimize the drainage so that it mirrors the existing conditions. And so that's through measures like stormwater ponds, and we'll also have silt fencing in place to prevent any erosion into the streams on site, in addition to the setbacks that we have already incorporated.
Okay. And, I appreciate you pulling up the exact, location where it is, but really I'm just hoping we can have a conversation, because I think that's more helpful for the public to understand what it is that you're going to do to protect our natural resources. And you mentioned that 100-foot setback, because as I was looking at that map and seeing that water that flows directly through, 100 feet doesn't seem very far off from a significant water source moving through that parcel of land, not just sitting there like a pond, but moving on to somebody else's property. So can you please elaborate on the process of why 100 feet is a sufficient amount of space to protect a very important natural resource? And here in Colorado, it's considered gold, our water.
Yes, definitely, and I agree, water is paramount, and also that's part of why I enjoy solar projects, for the simple fact that they're the lowest water use of any one of the, I think it's wind is slightly less and solar is just a little bit more, but operationally there's very little water use that is needed. For projects, sometimes there are impacts directly to water resources, wetlands. That's why permits exist, right? There's a permitting process with the Army Corps. We are not doing that. We are avoiding those resources entirely. And then for many projects across the country, I would say the average setback from water resources ranges from 25 to 50 feet. Again, that's based on my years of experience in the industry. And so we truly are going above what the industry standard is for setbacks from water resources. And in addition to those setbacks, as I mentioned, we'll also have stormwater management, best management practices in place, like silt fencing to prevent erosion into those streams.
Okay, I'd like to move on to another question I heard from the public. Someone asked, does it raise the temperature in the area? Do winds become warmer? Can you speak to that, please?
I'm not aware of any research or evidence that supports that statement. On the contrary, I know that there's been a recent study at Jack's Solar Garden in Longmont, Colorado, that evaluated solar in a very similar grassland habitat to what we have on site here. And they found that actually there was an increase in soil moisture beneath the panels and an improvement in the vegetative communities compared to adjacent areas that did not have solar panels shading. And so I do not see how that data from the Jack Solar Garden study would correlate to an increase in heat when we do see that there is vegetative growth and increase.
Do you know if that project was similar in size and scope? Was it nearly 2,000 acres of solar panels?
My understanding is that it is a smaller DG scale project, but the results from the study are significant.
Okay. I'd also like to ask another question the public had was, what exactly is the light pollution from solar panels? I think I read in staff reports and other places that you believe there is no light pollution, but what is it that the public is referencing when they say that there is light pollution? Is it the glare, or what is it? And please speak to that.
Yeah, again, I can't speak to any light pollution specific to the solar panels. Solar panels are not lit. We may have security lighting at the site. Again, that's going to be minimized, and those are down shielded to prevent light spill onto other properties. That's an industry best management practice. So we do anticipate that there still will be dark sky conditions at night. Speaking specifically to glare, the panels themselves are coated in an anti-glare coating. If you think about it, it'd almost be counterintuitive for us to have solar energy bouncing off our panels. And so we do not anticipate that there will be any glare impacts from our panels. Additionally, there is in this area several wind projects, as were noted, and those have the red FAA lighting that blinks at night. Our project will not have anything like that.
Okay. And then I have one more question from the public, and I have a few of my own. I think I also heard folks reference, is this your first time here in Colorado developing a project? Do you have any other projects in our state?
Yes, we do have a project. It's near the city of Aurora. That project was successfully permitted. I myself have also had several projects go through construction in Colorado, in El Paso County, and others in the state. Not at BayWa, but in my prior tenure at another company.
Okay. So not with this company?
Not to construction. We do have a permitted project outside the city of Aurora.
That's the one in Aurora? Okay, and that one has not actually got off the ground yet? You've only got approval for it?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, and then I have a few of my own questions I'd like to ask. Okay, with regard to natural hazards, the application addresses hail, tornado, and wildfire, but the analysis applies industry standards versus like specific research that's specific to our area. So what project design standards are being used to assess whether or not these natural hazards that we experience out here in Elbert County, baseball-sized hail that often is spiky, tornadoes, hail, high winds, wildfire, lightning, and then of course extreme heat and extreme cold. What evidence is in our record that demonstrates that the solar equipment and the battery equipment is going to be able to withstand those conditions?
If I could ask Cody to just speak specifically to kind of the measures that are in place in design, and I'm happy to provide you with further detail on.
Sure. So I don't know what's in your hands right now on these topics. I genuinely don't know. Where I step into this is on the construction side. I get all of my drawings and basically my build sheet from the engineers. The engineers have to do wind load tests that are equivalent to the winds that we see out here in Elbert County, right? So in order to build this site and have it stand up throughout the 40-year life cycle that it's supposed to stand up, the piles and the different racking systems that we install out here have to be able to withstand the wind speeds that we anticipate seeing in Elbert County on a regular basis. So at that point in time, we will have engineered drawings with specific design details to ensure that they will withstand the wind load speeds that we're anticipating in Elbert County. Past that, as far as talking about hailstorms, again, I spoke to that a little bit earlier on in talking about hail stow and the different technologies that are out there currently today and developing up currently that we will implement onto this project.
But I do have concerns, and excuse me for interrupting, I do have concerns that when you have baseball and softball size hail dropping from the heavens at your solar panels, that maybe you're not going to be able to tilt it in time. Maybe the winds shift and the hail comes from a different direction. What kind of evidence is there that these solar panels or your batteries are not going to cause hazardous conditions for our community?
Gotcha. Look, so as far as the panels are concerned, it's just like building a house out here. There's always a chance that a tornado can come through and wipe out a house, or a hailstorm can come and damage a roof on a house, what have you. There's always that opportunity. It's Mother Nature. We can't completely foolproof this against Mother Nature. With that being said, the panels don't just disintegrate and shatter into a million pieces, right? They do hold together, just again, like windshield, it's tempered glass. So you don't just have a million little pieces that end up in the ground. You may have busted pieces of panel that would need to be picked up in an extreme case. But it doesn't mean that it just goes into powder into the ground. So I can't tell you that without a doubt 100% that this site will never have damage from a tornado or a hailstorm. But I can tell you that they're designed not to just disintegrate and dissolve into the ground.
Okay.
We also, of course, as I mentioned earlier, have remote operating capability. So we're overseeing both the weather and the operating capacity of the plant. And so if there's damage, we're able to respond, get out on site, fix panels that are broken, pick up any damaged panels if necessary. And of course, these sites are insured, so for, disaster as well.
Are they insured for causing damage to neighboring property?
What kind of damage are you referring to?
Oh, well, for example, a tornado. A tornado that might pick up a solar panel or 1,000 and throw them all over the neighbors' properties.
Yeah, we're happy to meet with our insurance expert and get further information on that. Also, I did want to just note, as you requested for the record, where we have information in the application packet that's in front of you regarding natural hazards. Again, I know you said you didn't want to get into specific.
Well, no, what I said, I didn't say I didn't want to get into specifics. What I said was, let's just have a conversation. Please state out loud, what does it say about the specific evidence that demonstrates that your solar panels and your batteries can withstand the hazardous conditions that we have here and won't impose harm on our community?
Yes, there's a thorough discussion of that in both the 1041 and SUR narratives. I'm not going to repeat my colleagues, but it's similar to what they said. There's also consultation in the record with both Big Sandy Fire Protection District as well as Office of Emergency Management, and neither of those agencies have presented concerns about natural hazards or our inability to address them.
Okay, well, I mean, I'll take the testimony of your colleagues who gave some specifics, even if I think that might not be enough. But I guess my point in bringing this up is that one of the criteria that we have to find is that this project is not going to cause significant harm from natural resources on our community. And so if there's not enough evidence to demonstrate that that requirement is met, that's a criteria that is not met and would be a reason for me to recommend denial of this project. That's why I'm bringing it up. I have another question for you. This is also related to the hazardous materials, and please correct me, this question I have for you is related to how this project is going to play out. But it's my understanding that the final battery equipment may change before construction, that's not been solidified or it's not a sure thing. Can you please clarify whether or not the assumptions we're making about the battery and the material and the design could potentially change after approval, assuming you're approved, and then there's no follow-up for us to see whether or not the new materials are actually safe for our community?
So on the battery topic, and this, I need to address what you were talking about before as well, and I apologize I didn't get to it. We talked about solar panels. So historically, the battery containers were made out of connexes, shipping connexes. So as far as, standing up to tornadoes and hail and things like that, shipping connexes have no issues with that whatsoever. They're quite tough enough to go across the ocean countless times and not have any damages to them outside of maybe a dent or something like that. That's just cosmetic. You add in the weight of the batteries inside of them, they're not going to blow away. Moving forward into the technologies that we're looking to use down the road, exterior-wise, they may be more aesthetically pleasing and not just a shipping connex out there, maybe cleaned up or something like that, but they're still built to the same standards as far as the durability of the outer shell of the shipping container or of the container the batteries will go into. So from there, as we look at technologies of batteries moving forward, it's going away from your standard lithium-ion batteries that we used to see. And currently, in our bills that we're looking at across the nation, we're looking at lithium-ion ferrite, which is a much more stable type of a battery material to use, right? It's a battery material that doesn't seem to have as many fires or anything like that, which leads to what Adam spoke to earlier on, why we've had a 99% decrease in fires and thermal events happen in batteries across the nation. So the materials that are being used are inevitably going to be safer, and they're getting less expensive. On top of that, if you do look at insurance requirements, chances are we're going to lean towards a product that's going to be less of a fire danger, that has less materials in it that are problematic for anybody around them if there were to be a thermal event or anything of that nature, because insurance companies don't want to cover anything of that nature, right? So as we move forward with this, it's getting less expensive and more viable for us to use safer alternatives as we move forward. Again, I'm not saying that that's exactly what we're going to use, I don't know what we're going to use on this, but the industry trends towards us using safer materials and safer properties as we move forward.
And I appreciate you making the comment that, of course, we're going to choose the safer option. But I would say that the bottom line also might suggest that you go with the cheaper option, which might not be the safer option. And the truth is that all we can do right now, or the BOCC can do in a week, is look at what you've provided to us today. And in a sense, it's like, okay, so if we're approving something that could potentially change, it's a bit of a blank check with regard to safety and hazardous conditions that could impact our community based on potentially a company making a bottom line decision that's cheaper and not necessarily safer.
Understood. No, I understand where you're going with that. I think, they've got more to speak on it. I just think as we move forward with this, those materials are the cheaper materials as we move forward, is what I was driving at. And that's all I had to say towards that.
I'll just add quickly to that. So, we have to meet NFPA, National Fire Protection Association standards, International Fire Code, UL testing. There are a lot of very good regulations that are in place today to ensure that the equipment that gets spec'd for these projects is as safe as possible. And those regulations have gotten more strict over time as equipment has become safer. So this kind of performance that we're seeing, this 99% improvement in failure rate for batteries from 2018 to 2025, we expect to continue. We expect regulations to continue to reflect that increased performance. And of course, we'll need to ensure that we meet those regulations when we make our purchasing decisions.
And another thing that I would like to add, understood that this review by the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners is obviously important and based off of the information that we have currently as well. But it is not the last review by the county, right? There are multiple other permits and approvals that we'll need from the county prior to construction, building permits, grading permits, the road use agreement, et cetera. We're also happy to accept as a permit condition that we provide you with details on the specifications of the BESS unit that we have selected for the project. It's the same deal for the solar panels. Happy to provide you guys with that information once it's available. We also will continue to work with all of the agencies that I listed on that earlier slide, especially Big Sandy Fire and Office of Emergency Management, to ensure that they're comfortable and continue to be comfortable with our project. There are multiple requirements from Big Sandy Fire Protection District of plans that we have to provide to them prior to construction. And Kara, who you may or may not know, is one of the foremost experts in the entire industry. She's with Elizabeth Fire, where she works closely with Big Sandy Fire, and we have coordinated with her closely on this project, so we can ensure you that if it meets Kara's standards, that's what we're going to do.
Okay, and I guess my only response back is that safety regulations don't stop spontaneous combustion because of high temperatures in the area or lightning strikes. If they did, we would never see any fires related to batteries. So my concern remains the same, and as I have this discussion with you, again, I'm just brought back to the fact that one of our criteria is to make sure that this is safe for our community and does not release hazardous materials or conditions into our community, and without knowing exactly what even battery storage you're going to get, I feel like that is a major blank check that leaves us in a position where we should reconsider whether or not that's a criteria that's actually been met if we're not sure about what battery is being used. I want to ask, I want to ask one more question right now, and then I'll pass on to my colleagues. And this is related to nuisance components, in particular, how it might affect our neighbors with regard to landscaping, screening around solar projects. Again, one of our requirements is that there's adequate screening and buffering to preserve the aesthetics, the landscape, and residential development. Now, in your application, you say that there's going to be landscape screening around batteries, but there is no discussion of any type of buffer, berm, anything else to protect the neighboring residents from having a direct view of 2,000 acres worth of solar panels. So can you please address why, or if you're willing to put that into your application, or why you won't?
Yep, happy to address that topic. So the regulations do allow for topography as an acceptable screening method. And as I showed in the earlier slide with the visual simulations, from a large percentage of those viewpoints, you can't see the project, so much so that we had to include an arrow pointing to the project's location to show that we modeled the project appropriately. So that was kind of the thesis behind the setbacks and topography that we have included for the project. We are planning to screen the O&M building and the substation. I believe there's a specific requirement for substations to have vegetative screening, so that's why that decision came into place. Regarding berms, it is a possibility. I do have concerns about the additional earthwork and soil disturbance that would be needed, as well as the long-term impacts of those berms being in place for 40 years. How would that affect the soil conditions and drainage on site? So happy to further continue that discussion. Also, would want to understand any potential implications for snow and road management. If there were to be a berm, does that affect that? So for those reasons, we have not considered a berm. Additionally, with turning onto different roads, site distance is important, and so we want to ensure that site distance is not affected by our screening measures for the project. In regards to a vegetative buffer, we have not incorporated that into the project to date. Primarily, except for the area that I mentioned, primarily the reason behind that decision is the wildfire risks and considerations. This would be introducing a fuel source that's not currently there. And so that's one of our primary reasons. And then also the water use, that would cause an increase in water use to get that vegetation buffer established. All that to say, we are amenable to incorporating vegetative buffer where it makes sense, especially for residential properties that are near the project. Not to say that we wouldn't consider that, but I did just want to provide some logic behind our current plans.
And in response to that, I know you showed us some photographs, but honestly, they were so small on that screen. You said you have more, and my only other comment with regard to the photographs was they were so far away. I'd like to actually see, from the property line, what does it look like from many different areas around the project? So if you have some more to show us, that'd be great.
Yes, I do, and I can walk you through both the methodology that was used for that analysis and the locations themselves. So this is a representation of the visual simulation that we completed for the project. You'll notice that the solar panels are a lot more than what you see on our current site plan. That was done very intentionally for this visual analysis, and the intent of that is to provide a conservative view shed impact, so that we're kind of getting a quote-unquote worst-case scenario of if the entire project boundary had solar panels on it, what that would look like. These visual simulations were taken from public roads, and each dot on the screen represents one of those view shed locations. I don't know how you want me to go about this, but I'm happy to just visually walk through and answer any questions on any particular locations. But as you can see from this viewpoint, the existing topography screens the project location, and it is not visible.
Okay, can I just, right here, just one question is, I'm not sure why you would take a photograph so far away. I mean, my house looks small if I take a picture of it far enough away. That doesn't mean anything for the community.
We do have locations that are directly adjacent to the project.
Let's see those.
Yes.
Particularly 10, 3, and 7.
10, 3, and 7. And apologies, I might have to come up here because I can't see it myself. All right, so this is the viewpoint from location 3. This is in the southwest of the project area and is facing the project site. This is from the parcel, well, taken from the public road of the part in front of the parcel, directly adjacent to the project in the southeast. You can see the solar panels just over the hilltop, but again, it's not a significant impact to the view shed.
And is there a house just to the right of those?
Yes, that's correct. You'll also note that there are existing buildings and vegetation on this property that would provide further screening from the home at this location.
But just for the record, it's not the responsibility of homeowners to screen out the solar project.
That's correct. And if there are homeowners in the area that would like screening on their property, that is also something that we are very amenable to if they're adjacent to the project. All right, I think you wanted to see 7 next. So this is from viewpoint 7. Again, the site is not detectable on the current view shed, but you can see the wind turbines in the background. And then next, I think we wanted to see 10. So this is a viewpoint from station 10. I think I have 2 of these. I believe this may be Mr. Bates' property. So I just wanted to note that for the record.
And can you just clarify, is the shadow on the right side of the picture the solar panels?
Yes, and I have an alternate viewpoint that views towards the location of the solar panels. But I just, for reference, wanted to provide location on where this is. So this is in the southeast portion of the project site. And then as you face towards the project, you have a view of the panels. However, they are low profile. They will blend with the horizon, and we're amenable to considering additional setbacks in this area. If it's
Just a second, sorry. You said low profile, but I thought I remembered the graphic showing that they're like 20 feet tall.
No, they're at max tilt expected to be like 10 feet or so. I believe they can go up to 14 feet depending on what's selected for the project. But no, there was no 20-foot solar panels. And again, if we incorporate additional setbacks in this area, they would be further in the distance and less visible. And that's something that we're willing to consider this evening.
Do you know what the setback is from this location?
I can pull that up. If you give me 1 second.
Because for them to be that small, the setback's got to be very significant.
Yes, so I know from the residents, I did measure that. And sorry, this is so hard to read. I do have printed copies of this figure. From the residents of Mr. Bates to the panels themselves, it's approximately 434 feet in the current design. Again, we're amenable to further conversations about increasing setbacks in that area, and also amenable to incorporating additional vegetative screening on the project site, or on adjacent landowners' property as well, if that's their preference.
I mean, I guess the feedback I want to give you is I sure wish you would have gotten closer to this project so we could actually see what the impact is to the people close by. The other thing is the way that it's formatted, the solar panels just look like a shadow in the grass. Like to have the right coloration so that we can actually see where it is would have been helpful. It feels very, well, it doesn't feel very forthright when we're squinting to try to see where the solar panels are, because we know that a 2,000 acre footprint of solar panels is not going to be that inconspicuous. It's going to be very significant. We just want to have an honest assessment of what is the impact to our community. And when you take those pictures on overcast days and shadow the solar panels so dark, that's not really a fair representation of what it's going to look like on a bright sunny day here in Colorado.
Yes, we do have, and I think I may have left my clicker at the table, we do have visual simulations that were completed on sunny days, and I'm happy to go through those again. And then just a note on what the panels look like. So the simulation was completed using manufacturer specifications. So the coloring, the design, all of that is reflected directly from the manufacturer into the project design.
And did you simulate the height?
Yes.
Because it didn't look like it.
Yes, it does.
No, it's my opinion. It didn't.
Yes, I understand. But from a technical perspective, that is what the manufacturer sheets showed. And that's how it's currently modeled.
I have no other questions at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan?
First of all, thank you for your patience in answering all these questions. I would like to first ask what sort of ongoing financial benefit is there to the county? And I just need a quick recap of that, if you would, please.
Primarily, it would be the tax revenue as well as annual purchases within the county from operations and maintenance.
Okay. What, from a management standpoint, and what I'm interested in is, you mentioned weed control and weed management. What techniques are you going to use for that, and how much disturbance do you expect to apply to the area you're working on? Are you going to clean it completely, or are you going to leave as much grass? And then how are you going to handle weeds?
So as far as handling weeds on site, we're anticipating planting anything that is disturbed on site as far as acreage with the native species and native blend of plants out here, with the intent of over a period of time those native species taking over and fully covering the area. In order to get to that place, there will be ongoing mowing activities to try to keep noxious weeds, things like that, from growing and give some of the native species a chance to grow and vegetate on site. There's a potential that we may use agrivoltaics, i.e. sheep or something like that out there to graze as well. That could help selectively, graze out different weeds and weed species that we aren't really wanting out there on site. And then last but not least, of course, there would be potential for chemical application to control any kind of weed species that we're not looking for out there, so that over a period of time we would have just the native species that we're looking for out there on site.
Would you use any soil sterilants at all?
No soil sterilants on this site whatsoever. That goes completely against what we're trying to accomplish during construction. We want to have vegetation established as soon as possible to any ground that we do disturb, which primarily keeps dust down, is a huge concern of ours, as well as prevents any kind of erosion during the construction activities out there on site.
Well, my question is concerning runoff and what might travel to the neighbors. Just out of curiosity, what method of tilt management do you folks use? Is it electric or hydraulic? What do you do?
So the panels tilt electrically with electrical motors. Most tractor systems you'll see an electrical motor on each axis that goes through there. So yeah, that's how that's controlled.
Okay, thank you. So that reduces the probability of hydraulic problems and leaks and whatnot. More specifically about your lighting. Where are you going to put the lighting? Is it just going to be around your OEM and Best Center, or are you looking at other places around your facility?
Yeah, so BESS substation area, you're going to see some lighting there. That's required for us to have. Aside from that, you might see a security light or something of that nature at the O&M building. Past that, I don't know if we're required to have any kind of other security lighting at gates or anything of that nature, but we're not looking to install lights throughout the property by any means. The fewer we have to install, the better for us. So we're not looking to see lights throughout the arrays or anything of that nature.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. Where is your remote location that you would operate it from in the event you weren't there on site?
So the remote operations center that we currently own is in Carlsbad, California. That manages sites that we have across the nation, from East Coast to West Coast. That's where it technically is. That's where a person's sitting at, monitoring it 24/7.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
John?
Kind of talking like what Kyle talked about, how many megawatts does this produce?
199.
How long into the night does that last? Like, you're charging the batteries, and then at night, is there anything coming out of there?
Yeah, the intent is for 4 hours of storage. So the battery would be able to produce for 4 hours at that nameplate capacity, or longer at a lower capacity.
Okay. So you said 100 and some megawatts?
Yeah, basically 200.
Okay. Well, that's about what Mountain View uses. So it's the only questions I had.
Great, thanks, John. Okay. Remind me again of the construction timeline. How long will it be under construction?
18 to 24 months is what is currently anticipated.
On your slide where you had the, thank you, sorry. On the slide where you talked about two things, the quality of water and support for a number of homes. 220 homes was listed there. I was trying to figure out why.
Can you repeat that question? I didn't catch that. It was about the 220 homes?
Yes.
It's the equivalent economic impact to the county in terms of property tax revenue.
Okay, great, thank you. So if I were to look at this, 220 homes would give me X amount of dollars in 1 year, X, another in 5, another in 10, because you talked about 29 million over the life of the project, and I'm assuming that's the 40 years that you're expecting this to survive. What would be year 1, and what would be year 5 when it's fully complete?
You're asking what the year 1 property tax revenue
Yes.
would be?
Your estimate for what that would be, because I'm sure it's only an estimate at this point.
We have that.
We do have a full breakdown in our economic impact assessment. If you give us a moment, we can pull that up for a year by year. I can provide some clarity for the residential equivalency analysis we have in the study. So the 220 homes found in the study concluded that it would provide the equivalent amount of tax revenue as new residences. There's assumptions made just based on the size and number of folks living on. And what the study ultimately found was, in the long term, the residential analysis would provide more property tax revenue than our facility. However, when we consider services provided by the county, roads, schools, libraries, et cetera, the project ends up being significantly less expensive and therefore more of a financial cost than those equivalent 220 homes.
I don't need the full breakdown. I think the explanation you just gave was good enough. Pivoting a little bit, how many solar panels would you expect to see on I think it's like 1,300 acres, but we've talked to 2,000 equivalent. So give me a full number of solar panels.
Yes, our current design contemplates 495,000 panels, individual panels.
What's 2% of that?
2% of that, I'm very bad at mental math, so give me a moment.
Just shy of 10,000.
Yeah, so 2% of that in a tornado, that's a lot of panels flipping through the air. The reason why I brought that up is twofold, right? So what was that rated against? What's the Fujita scale for the tornadoes that you've tested against? F2, F3, F5, what?
I can speak to the hurricanes. I know that they were
Not a hurricane. I'm talking tornadoes.
Yes,
we don't get a lot of
understand.
hurricanes in Colorado.
Yes, thankfully, one less thing to worry about. So of the properties that were studied, so in April 2015, that project does not say the tornado strength, but it was in the Mojave Desert. I don't know much about tornadoes in the Mojave Desert, but I can look into that further and provide that information.
Probably a sandstorm at this point. Okay. You mentioned a minute ago about your work with the fire department. It's kind of odd that we still don't know the amount of time or response time for that. Are you looking at other ways to improve that, like AI sensors, wildland fire sensors, things like that? Have y'all looked at that?
Yeah, so as far as the BESS itself is concerned, the BESS systems are now more or less designed to be self-contained, to where firefighters don't show up to actually fight said fire. When they come out there, they're there to monitor it.
Yeah,
to
they're
make
not
sure
equipped
it doesn't
for
go
it.
elsewhere.
Understand how to fight.
Now, as far as sensors for the solar arrays themselves, the rock that we have does monitor to see if we have any kind of arcs or faults or anything of that nature, which would indicate, an open flame more or less that could cause a fire in grasslands, things of that nature, that would immediately trip and turn the system off, thus eliminating the fire hazard, the spark that it causes. Past that, I'm not aware of us looking at any kind of sensors for a wildland fire that's progressing through our site currently.
Yeah, do you think that would be advantageous to both y'all and to the fire department?
Yeah, I agree. That seems like a good idea.
So who typically makes your solar panels? Where are they constructed?
I don't know who we're using here. I know we've used a supplier on previous sites that was built off on the East Coast. I believe it was in the Carolinas was where they were shipped from last. What was that?
They're not doing the development of the solar panels on the East Coast. Where are they built?
I just toured a factory, 2 months ago in Houston that's building them.
Houston, okay.
Yes, sir. So I know that they're building
all
here.
of the construction or final construction there?
I know that there's components or materials that are coming from overseas.
Vietnam.
I'm sure somewhere over there. Yes, sir.
Okay. Who's building your electrical systems, your PLCs, those kind of things?
Our procurement decisions occurred a little bit later in project development, closer to construction. So, we haven't committed to procure equipment yet with specific providers, and we won't until the project has a contract for power sales.
Okay. How about what typically do y'all use for PLC for the programmable logic controllers that actually, move the solar panels, do the validation of arc control, and shut the panels down if need be?
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the brand that we're using currently for SCADA type systems, and it's slipping for me right now. I'm not a SCADA guy by any stretch of the imagination. I try to.
You're just going to install them. So.
Correct. I know we've got SCADA engineers that are deep into a lot of that. I don't remember which components that they're using specifically for that.
So you have a call center in Carlsbad, California. I'm assuming at some level they are protected from a cyber perspective. Are the fields that you harvest from also protected from a cyber perspective?
Yes. No, that's part of having a recognized rock center. Is it has to be fully secured and fully safe from cyber attacks.
So, how do you do your protection for the actual solar farm itself? Right, because these can be attacked, they can be shut down, they can be manipulated. How are y'all doing that?
Sure. I genuinely, I'm not a cyber guy by any means, so I can't answer that for you real well. I don't know, guys, if you have any more evidence or information on how we're protecting ourselves on that.
No, we don't have somebody with us tonight who could answer that detailed question, but we certainly do have somebody who can answer it at a later point.
And we can provide a follow-up written response to that question.
Please. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're happy to.
You talk about a 10-foot brush free area. What are you considering brush in this case?
Yes, that was at the recommendation of Big Sandy Fire Protection District.
For a definition of brush.
Brush, yeah, tall, grassy, or brushy vegetation, so like a shrub.
We're putting grass there.
Yes, but the grass will be low-growing seed mix. It's not brush.
Low-growing as in 1 foot, less than a foot?
Yes, generally we try to keep things under 16 inches, and we select that with the seed mix that we include.
Right, okay. And last question, I'll leave you alone. What's the setback area around the battery storage?
So the battery storage, you have the setback map in front of you. As measured from County Road 149, we have almost 2,000 feet setback.
Okay, I lied. I'm going to ask one more question. I'm talking about around the battery storage itself. So I got two questions.
Oh, around the...
How much space do you have around the battery storage? Yes.
I don't have that exact detail, but I can get with my engineers. I do know that we designed to National Fire Protection Association 855 standards, so it would be that at a minimum, and that's what's determined to be the safe separation distance between cabinets.
10 feet. Is it typically 10 feet?
My understanding from the standard is that it's 3 feet, but again, I'm not an expert on this, so I would prefer to follow up with my colleagues who are, and I'm happy to provide a written response.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And then going back to the picture that you have that you're showing, is that a fairly flat area that we're showing, or is there a rise and fall of 10 feet, 20 feet, 100 feet? What's the number?
Again, I don't have that level of detail with me. I do think there's a slight rise as you get further down the road, but again, I'm not the expert on that, but happy to dig into that further and let you know. I'm just confirming you're specifically asking about this visual simulation that I'm showing on the screen currently.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Any other last-minute questions, comments?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair, if you'll allow me. I have one follow-up. Wanted to have this discussion, and this is an important one to have. One of our required findings is that this use for this land is in harmony and compatible with surrounding area in the neighborhood. And so I wanted to ask you just directly, what evidence demonstrates compatibility when we consider this project in toto, right? Cumulatively, not just individual, but when we're taking into effect the rural landscape, construction, visual impacts, the batteries, the impact on our neighborhoods and on agricultural operations. Can you please tell me what it is that you believe demonstrates that this is compatible with surrounding land use?
I'll hand the microphone back to Natalie in just a moment, but to preface the specific answer about the evidence in the record supporting a finding of compatibility, I just wanted to speak a little bit to what does compatibility mean, right? Compatibility does not mean the same as. It means when things that are not the same can be nonetheless in close proximity to each other without creating negative impacts on each other. So there's no question that what is being proposed here is not rural agriculture, right? We know that. But it is something that has been listed as a potential special use in the agricultural district by the county because it is a use that the county, when it adopted those regulations, determined could be compatible with other rural agricultural uses, assuming that all of these other criteria about external impacts are met. So I just wanted to say that because I think a lot, compatibility is a bit subjective in terms of how it's determined, and no one's saying that it's exactly the same as what's already there. It's clearly not, but it certainly is a use which is and could be harmonious with the existing surroundings. And I think the evidence that we're offering in answer to your question has to do with the visual impact, the potential mitigation for all potential negative impacts like groundwater, like noise, like odor, like construction traffic, all of those things, all those details are different ways to determine if compatibility exists.
Well, I will say that you're right about one thing. Compatibility, the definition of it is subjective. And while that might be your definition of compatibility, it might not be ours. It might not be the BOCC's. And what we do know is that our zoning regulations don't actually fully define it. So it is meant to be subjective based on the decision makers who are looking to the future of Elbert County. A follow-up question to that, and this is my last one, Chair. Would your company consider reducing the solar panel footprint to reduce the hazardous risks and impact to our community?
Yes, we would consider reductions and increased setbacks in certain areas of the project, primarily especially focusing near the existing residents.
And when you say that you guys are open to reduction, a 50% reduction?
No, 50% would not be feasible.
Well, what does the company think would be amenable, the applicant?
Yes, I think we could increase the setback on County Road 149. Currently, it's 218 feet to the solar panels. I think we could increase that to 250 feet. And similarly, for the residents that's off of County Road 46 in the southwestern portion of the project, we can increase the setback in that area to 500 feet.
So in terms of the footprint, though, if we're talking 1,900 acres of solar farm production, what would that look like with all those setbacks?
I don't have the ability to calculate that off the top of my head. What I can tell you is that once we get to final engineering, the plans that will be provided to the county for final review with our building permits and grading permits, that will be optimized by the team that's going to construct the site. So it is very likely that there will be a reduction in the overall footprint from what you see in front of you this evening.
But definitely not the 50%.
No.
Maybe something like 20%, 10%, smaller? Any idea with that, a couple of hundred of feet? Are the setbacks that you're talking about, are they where you have solar panels planned, or are they in non-solar panel areas?
Yes, the setbacks that I referred to off of County Road 149 are within solar panel areas. Again, we can commit tonight to increasing those to 250 feet. And then similarly on the County Road 46, that residence, we can commit to a 500-foot setback around that residence, and that is in a solar panel area.
Okay. And I asked that question just because I wondered if it was possible that it might be compatible with surrounding the land use, but based on what you're suggesting, it doesn't seem like that would be small enough to be compatible in my estimation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Do we have Any other last-minute comments, questions, concerns? I will hear a motion then. Do we need a minute to to put our thoughts around the motion together? So, as usual, we can do the things where we look at this and say, we'll make a motion to affirm or to deny or to approve with mitigating steps or circumstances.
Stipulations.
Stipulations, thank you, great word. What are we thinking?
What was that, Kyle?
Do you have anything for the 1041?
I mean, I guess my question, maybe for Lance, the county attorney, is if there are a number of us who would be interested in voting against recommendation to the BOCC, is it better to have an affirmative motion and then vote against it, or to recommend denial and then vote for a denial?
I don't know that I'm sorry, Lance Ingalls, county attorney for the record. I don't know that one is better than the other. What's important is to have a clear record. So I know some people prefer that the motion always be made in the affirmative, and then if the motion fails, they make a motion to deny. So that it's clear how people would have voted, because not everyone that would vote to approve would necessarily vote to deny. Sometimes conditions would change a vote. So my recommendation is recommend with as much clarity as you can what you want the board to do and support it with some rationale so they understand your recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And do you also recommend that we do this separately for the 1041 and the SUR?
Yes, because the approval criteria are slightly different for each, you will need a motion on each.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I asked that because, is this on now?
It is.
Okay. I asked that because I have a recommendation for the SUR, but I know the 1041 needs to go first. So I was curious, I know you brought up some points on the 1041, so I wanted to see if you had those sections.
I do.
That's what I'm presenting. If you wanted to make that motion on the 1041 and I can handle the SUR. I just don't have anything for the 1040 or the 1041.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and make a motion on the 1041. We'll start with that one. The major 1041.
And just to be clear, Lance, it's okay to recommend denial as the first motion? Is that clear enough for the BOCC?
If that is your conclusion as to what you should recommend,
Yes.
then that is a fine thing to move.
Okay.
That's what we've done in the past with qualifying categories, so we'll go ahead and do that.
And my question to you, Nicole, is I have one that I don't believe is met, which is the natural resources, but I know you brought up some different points, natural hazards and natural, in storm systems and such. But I know you brought up other subsections in the 1041 as well that I don't want to miss.
Yes. Okay. Well, then I'll just bring up the ones that come to mind for me, and if anyone has anything else to add, please go ahead and add it. So I move that we recommend denial to Shepherd Solar 1041-2026-0001 on the condition, or on the fact that the following criteria has not been met. Article ECZR, Article 17, Section M.1C, G, I, L, and Article ECZR, Article 17, Section M.2F, and section M.4a. All of those are related to natural hazards, environmental degradation, nuisance, the release of hazardous materials, the benefit does not outweigh the losses, and screening and buffering.
Any additional from the Planning Commission? With that, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can we define those sections? Read them to us if you don't mind. Can you provide an explanation of what each of those sections is, please?
I just did. Natural hazards, significant environmental degradation, nuisance, release of hazardous material, the benefit does not outweigh the losses, and screening and buffering.
It'll help the hearing if you can speak into the microphone.
Thanks. I'm just reiterating the calculus for your voting criteria. So we have a move and a second. Let's get a roll call vote.
Roll call vote on Shepherd Solar, the Major 1041. Dan Guthrie.
I vote nay.
Ken Madsen.
I'll vote for the denial.
Kyle DiNardo.
Aye.
Nicole Hunt.
Aye.
John Gresham.
Nay.
Dee Dee Schott Grace.
I just got confused. Aye.
Kevin Kirkwood.
Aye.
Aye 5, nay 2.
And with that, I'll hear a motion on the SUR.
Yeah, I move that the Planning Commission recommend denial of the special use by review for Shepherd Solar SUR-2026-0002. The applicant has failed to demonstrate that the proposed use meets the following mandatory approval criteria set forth in the Elbert County zoning regulations. Article 3, Section E.5a. The use is in harmony and compatible with the surrounding area and neighborhood. The industrial scale solar and battery energy storage facility is not compatible with the existing agricultural and rural residential character of the surrounding area. And F, the use will be adequately landscape buffered and screened. The proposed landscaping, buffering, and screening measures are insufficient to adequately mitigate visual and other impacts on surrounding properties and the rural character of the area.
I'll second it.
I would add G, not detrimental to health, safety, welfare. I think we've proven that it could.
I would accept G in my motion.
And I'll still second it with that. Yeah.
And so we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Shepherd Solar, SUR. Kevin Kirkwood.
Aye.
Dee Dee Schott Grace.
Aye.
John Gresham.
Nay. Nay.
Nicole Hunt.
Aye.
Kyle DiNardo.
Aye.
Ken Madsen.
Aye.
Dan Guthrie.
I can't ignore property rights here. I vote nay.
Aye 5, nay 2.
Thank you. Appreciate the applicant. I appreciate the work that the committee did on this. Thanks, everybody. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who was the second?